Hello, everybody. Welcome to Christian Hangout number 35. With me again, I have LUMEN Saul, William Scott, and returning for the first time in about half a year, we have Tom Knox. So, good to have you guys with us. Let's say hello, guys.
Hello.
Good to be here. Hello.
Hello. Yes, good to be here.
Yeah, last one we did, William wasn't with us. So it's the first time in like 20 episodes he hadn't been here, so it's pretty interesting. Like, it just felt totally different without you.
You guys got a word in edgewise, eh?
Yep. We had Loretta the PROLE with us last time. I invited her, but I don't know if she checks her email that often, so maybe she doesn't even know she was invited. But if you're listening, Loretta, check your email and you can join if you want. But anyway, so as you can see, we actually have a topic for a change, and maybe hopefully we'll be able to stick to that topic for longer than 10 minutes. And the topic is love. And thinking about this topic is because I was telling LUMEN about this in a private conversation we had, but kind of got into it with some liberal quote-unquote Christians online. And I realized that it's very easy to look at these people who, I mean, I don't necessarily consider them real Christians, but I think if they want to be Christians or on some level they want to feel like Christians, I should be approaching them with a spirit of love, because it's easy to just say like, oh, well, just decided to try to be a troll. But sometimes you have to stop yourself and think like, okay, am I really doing this in a spirit of love, or am I doing it in the spirit of just wanting to, be like the righteous judge or something? And I had to kind of stop myself and think about, if I'm doing this in the spirit of love, how does that change it? And it really is interesting how it does change your perspective. It's something that people in our sphere need to be reminded of, that we do need to be loving. We do need to remember that love should be our motivating factor, and that so it got me thinking, like, what is love, and what does it mean to be loving as Christians? And that, or should I keep rambling?
Well, obviously, you start. Well, I start, because I'm Catholic, from the understanding that there are two types of love. There's eros and agape, and in relation to what you're talking about, Ian, and this is something that you have to be careful with on social media. It's so easy to be tempted to win, which is, it's a form of pride, and especially with the maybe worrying about being called a cuck, or whatever, but yeah, I mean, it's agape is a good way to think about it. I think for people who who are new Christians, or who aren't Christian, or who have been Christian for a while and kind of worry that that they're just perhaps going overboard with their Christian love, is you're wishing the best for someone, whether that person is actually your adversary, your enemy, so that doesn't give you an excuse to not care, to not try to imitate Christ, but it does sort of underscore that you're not. It's not this touchy-feely thing, which a lot of Christians have, which most of Christianity, it seems, has fallen prey to in recent years. You're wishing the best, and that is love. And wishing the best could very well mean that this person, you recognize this person is very far from the teachings of Christ, and you want them to come back to that, and that is often. That does often take love, because it's much easier to just sort of go along with the zeitgeist and you know, whatever that is. You know, love is love, and you know, be inclusive, whatever. So that's where I would start. You know, you have eros, which you have for your wife, you know, for your you know, filial love, and I think what you're getting at is more of the agape.
Yeah. Kind of loves. Actually, C.S. Lewis had the book The Four Loves, where he talked about, I'm looking at right now, there's storge, agape, and can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a
You're
little bit.
cutting out there a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I can tell I'm getting a little icky. Yeah, Lumen, I was talking to him the other day, and my connection was a bit choppy, so just a little pre-warning. If my connection is weak, that might be a problem today, so hopefully there won't be too much of an issue with that. But if I start breaking up, that's probably why.
Time to throw a new hamster on the wheel that's powering your router, your modem.
But
yeah,
but your love is strong.
Yes.
Yes. So
Yeah,
I'm looking at this. Go on.
I just went to Wikipedia myself. I just was looking at this just as you started talking about it.
What, the four loves?
Storge, philia, eros, and agape.
Yeah. This little site I'm looking at says storge is affectionate love, filio is friendship love, eros is romantic love, and agape is divine love. And yeah, but I think that it does seem that there is a lack of love in a lot of things I see today. I mean, it's funny how the word love has become very abused. Like we mentioned earlier, the whole "love is love" thing to refer to, you know, gay marriage or something, which is just a complete perversion of it. And there's you know, it's like really just from debating these so-called liberal Christians online, I didn't really get a spirit of love from them. It was just that they were just more like trying to say, like, well, yeah, I'm a Christian, but I'm not one of those Christians. So they think that looking at you know, those backward Bible thumpers who they hate so much, it's like it's okay to hate them. You don't need to love them or treat them as brothers in Christ. It's just sort of it's just a form of virtue signaling for them. And that's not loving at all. So I think that we really need to be examples of love to people to show, like, true Christianity. Well, what the true Christian spirit is. Go on.
Yeah, I agree. I think love is misunderstood by to a large degree by modern society, and also the liberalism that's infecting Christianity currently, and that, you know, love is just, it's almost like it equals tolerance. You know, it has to, it needs to have this like tolerance needs to like be the highest point about concerning love. But the problem with, if you truly love somebody, you want to see them improve, or you want to see them, you know, become more fulfilled in Christ. You know, you don't want them to see more of them embodiment of Christ. And Christ didn't just sit there and just go, well, you can just do whatever, and, you know, everything's fine, and, you know, like we can just, you know, sit around and smoke pot and it's all cool. You know, that's not Christ. What is it called? The Doctrine of Nice that I was reading somewhere. And it's infected, I think, to too much degree, this apathy that's in the church. Real quick, I wanted to read from Timothy a portion that I think is relevant to what we're talking about, if you don't mind.
It's fine.
Please.
Go ahead.
All right, this is Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. Remember, the final age of this world is to be a time of turmoil. People will love nothing but self and money. They will be boastful, arrogant, and abusive, disobedient to parents, devoid of gratitude, piety, and natural affection. They will be implacable in their hatreds, scandalmongers, uncontrolled and violent, hostile to all goodness, perfidious, foolhardy, swollen with self-importance. They will love their pleasures more than their God, while preserving the outward form of religion. They are a standing denial of its power. Keep clear from them. They are the sort that insinuate themselves into private houses and there get silly women into their clutches. Women burdened with sins and carried away by all kinds of desires, always wanting to be taught, but incapable of attaining to a knowledge of the truth.
Very apropos to the conversation. Good
Yeah.
call. Good call.
Yeah, it pretty much sounds like the world we live in today.
Yeah, exactly.
Which verse is that?
That is Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1 to verse 7 or 8. Yeah, 7.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
And it really is an inversion of love. When if you accept that that Christ is your salvation, Christ you come to the Father through Christ, and that as I do that the Sacred Heart of Christ is the source of all love. You understand, or you should understand, that his precepts and his apostles, set for us a plain example. It's not always easy, but when you deny that, which is what sadly many Christians, I mean, you expect non-Christians to do it, but when Christians do it, it's a tragedy. It's the opposite of love. It's inverting love when you're ignoring or even enabling people to live in direct contravention to the love of Christ. It's perverse. It's obscene.
Yeah. I think that what was what Tom said earlier, that a lot of people have redefined love to mean tolerance. If anything, like you say, well, if you would, condemn somebody, or if you would rebuke somebody for being a sinner, you're not really loving them. You're just being judgmental. And there's that whole idea that judging someone is wrong because of that judge not lest you be judged first. But that's obviously a misinterpretation of it. But yeah, I mean, like, there are things that draw us, that put distance between us and God, like sins do that. And to tell somebody they're a sinner is loving. It has to be done in the spirit of love, and
Yeah.
a lot of people just don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And
it becomes, what was even the point of Christ coming?
Wait.
What is the point of salvation if permission
Exactly.
is the highest good?
Yeah.
Why does it?
That's what I was trying to get at. You got right to the point, William. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
if everybody can do whatever they want, then what's the point?
Yeah, what the inversion is. Sorry.
No, I get. Go on.
I mean, the inversion is that, what the world is doing, and that includes those in the church who have, some willfully, and some, I think, just because of, and there's a whole other subject, kind of metaphysical discussion about faith and lack of real faith. And I go through it myself too. And when I go through it, then my resolve weakens, and then my own personal walk also loses its vitality. But if we're, what the world is doing, and as they say, the church in the world is resisting essentially the 2,000 years that preceded. Not perfectly, but that preceded making certain kinds of claims about discipline, and that love is cleansing. You really can't know the love of Christ if you're deeply in sin, and you can't share that love either if you're deeply marred by sin. I know this from personal experience. but but now what they're doing is freeing people. Now freedom in Christ is freedom from the 2,000 years of Christianity that preceded, and that is understood as the only kind of valid expression of love in the modern age. It's a total inversion of
I think they're working very hard to undermine the tenets and the values and the foundation of Christianity itself, and they're going to wind up inverting it. I think that's I think that's the plan, and I think the devil is working hard on that plan, is to get the world to follow after an inverted form of Christianity, and to make it acceptable and palatable and something that should be rejoiced, and then then we'll really be at the end of the world.
yeah. Radical hospitality or something like this.
One thing along those lines is that when I was trying to argue with those people I was talking to a while back, was that I said, how come atheists basically hold all the same political views as you do, and yet you call yourself a Christian? Like, it's like you're following, if you're following the world's lead and not trying to make them follow your lead, like, don't you think that kind of seems like the source of your morality is wrong? It's like all those backwards Christians always holding us back. But I mean, I'm a Christian and all, but I wish those Christians weren't so, dogmatic about the Bible and stuff. Was basically the attitude. And it's like, why can't we be more liberal like these?
I wish they weren't so
Christian. Christianity. Yeah, it's like, why can't we be more tolerant like these people of the world? Like, they want Christianity to be more like the world than the world to be more like Christianity. And again, it's just a form of self-gratification, if anything.
Yeah, I was brushing up on my my church history recently. In the 19th century, this is when this liberalism got infected into Christianity. It was a response to the 19th century rationalist movements, and they started this stuff with humanism, and it's God was more about allegories and feelings and not. And it started building from there, and I think it's pretty much reached its zenith in the in the current year.
Yeah, it's just snowballing.
Yeah, and there's the old the Christian cliche that if you're taking from the Bible and from dogma, what suits you, what you like, you're listening to yourself. You're not listening to God anymore, and it becomes easier and easier as more and more chaos is implemented in society, in Western societies, in the church, and chaos is where Satan thrives. It's where certain people thrive also. There are certainly people, even broad generalized groups of people, ethnicities even, who thrive on this chaos, and it becomes easier the more, as Tom said, the more that snowball it gets rolling, even among us, and it's I would argue the same way that in the secular sphere, it's the most difficult position to take is that of the alt-right. It's the same as a Christian, just taking because in many ways the alt-right is just kind of a reprise of what everyone used to take for granted. The difference between human beings and the JQ and et cetera. It's the same with the traditional Christian. It's a difficult position to take, and it's but you can take heart in knowing that the truth is always the truth. It doesn't change. It's you can take heart in knowing that you're doing your best to do what Christ asked us.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Something you said there, Lumen. It reminded me of another thing that came to mind when I was debating those people, or well, I was more trying to, I don't know if you could call it debate or rhetoric or whatever.
When were you debating them?
I was on a blog where this lesbian who calls herself a Christian was talking about how the church needs to stop preaching that homosexuality is a sin, yada yada,
and it was recently, right?
Yeah, that was like earlier this month, I think. But or actually no, I guess it was in last month, not because we're in August now. But I guess approximately a month ago, 3 weeks, a month ago, whatever. And one thing I said was like, I forget which verse it was, but he talked about how there's a narrow path and very few people, like the path that leads to destruction is wide and the gate is large, but the path to the way is narrow and the gate is small. And very few people find it. And, you know, I guess for the first time I'd really thought about what that means, because I'm used to growing up feeling like, you know, I'm surrounded by Christians. We're all going to heaven. We're all good people. We're all on the right path, generally speaking. But I realized maybe it really is tougher than that. I mean, because I think around that same passage, Jesus says, people will prophesy in my name. People will cast out evil spirits in my name, and I'll say, I never knew you. So, you know, stuff like that really does hit home, because you realize that so many people think that being a Christian is easy, and that it's easy to just go through life on autopilot and live a Christian lifestyle, but it's not as easy as they say it is. So that's another reason why we can't let the world be our guide. We have to, and I guess to tie this back to our topic, just that the love really sets it apart. The Christian spirit of love is what I think makes a huge difference in whether you are really going the right way or not. Because it's easy to say I go to church and whatnot, and yeah, I believe, but like the Bible also says, if I have not love, then it's all meaningless.
Yeah, it's like cafeteria Christianity or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like or Christianity light. You know, you just
Christianity in water, as C.S. Lewis called it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There you go.
And it's kind of fine to have, like, certainly like levels of participation and commitment. I mean, it's obviously the church has to include people who are either, you know, both, you know, neophytes in the true original meaning of that word, and also people who are, you know, weak or whatever. But it's when the weak and the broken and the errant are putting themselves in the position of authority. This is the problem, right? And also, I know really good people, priests I know, who just even ones that somewhat are aware of the fact that modernity is a problem, and you know, and even speak about the great forgetting, and something's gone now that we once knew is still are, that there is this kind of mimetic possession they have. They just can't escape from this kind of misunderstanding of tolerance. You know, I mean, we kind of almost have to reclaim this word, I guess, rather than come up with a new one. I mean, tolerance means putting up with stuff you don't like.
Yeah, we just need to remind people that it's a negative value.
Yeah, exactly. And but to see very, very good people who even, and yet, you know, priests, because it is their job to be pastors and to be obviously open to people at various stages, and then looking at, you know, the average state of the average believer, and even of the average, well, especially in the Anglican Church, I suppose, the average clergy, you know, it's pretty low. Nick B. Steves had a great line in that interview on the Trad Dads with P.T. Carlo. He said, it's never been easier to excel. Meaning, it's been never easier in the world to shine as a moral person, because the state of morality is so abysmal.
Yeah, the standards are so low right now.
Yeah.
And it's this is a time for Christian love, because you know, we here in the West, so many, you know, and you touched on it briefly, William. So many people who are good people, and I think probably all of us could count ourselves among this number at some point. And I'll say for myself, you know, sometimes still, you know, I struggle. But you know, good people who, you know, we've been back on our heels for a little while. You know, we're just in this, you know, this state of disarray, where more than ever, and this is my hope, you know, within the alt-right, that people like us, you know, can be patient and can be, you know, available for, you know, for anyone who, under other circumstances, we might get impatient with and get annoyed with, and you know, because in the West, Western man is a wreck right now, and needs that love. You know, if there's one, you know, however things go politically, if there's one thing that Western man really needs, is peace in his heart and soul, and that's only going to come from the love of Christ.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to kind of touch on that I think is related to this is that how they're inverting it's like they're inverting the values of the gospel. And one of the things that I've kind of noticed is that, you know, since like I don't know, I guess like after the World War II, the post-war period, we started putting a lot of emphasis on, like, you know, the state, like all these charity groups, and also Christianity to a large degree, you know, doing a lot of charity for the third world, you know, like putting a lot of charity into to Africa and so forth. And one of the things I think is going to happen possibly in the future is they're going to invert, you know, almsgiving, like the sacrament of almsgiving, or the sacredness of it, in that people are there's going to be such a rejection, probably maybe at some point in the future, that people are just going to not even want to participate in it, because they just think it's, you know, just something where you just give something to people, and they just you know, they just, you know, they're just there to get the gibs or whatever, you know. And so what I think is, you know, with true charity, you know, charity should never be under the guise or under the auspice of the state, because the state ruins it. And I think what they're going to do is they're just going to get a lot of people in the future to just sort of turn away from it altogether. So I'm afraid, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm afraid that in the future we'll have more of a cultural rejection of charity, because they have just corrupted it so much.
They've confused it, whether consciously or not, with altruism.
Well, I think really true charity involves something like a personal connection with somebody. Like, I mean, if you're just like farming, like if you're just giving money blindly and saying, here, give it to this group or whatever, I mean, like, it's easy for somebody with a ton of money to go around being a wealthy philanthropist who never interacts with the people he helps. But like, I mean, a lot of people can just donate to charity and use it as a tax write-off and say, like, see what a good guy I am, and all these causes I give to. Like there has to be something, I think, more personal about it than just sending money somewhere.
Well, and there also needs to at least be some you know, some sense behind it, because the church always, you know, there's the concept of subsidiarity. You know, the authority closest to the issue, which can handle a problem, should be the one that handles it. But, you know, like the example of, you know, throwing the gibs at Africa, is this charity? I don't think it is. You're not helping these people. You're interfering with you know, a group of people who reach equilibrium with their environment in a way that's vastly different than us. And when you throw this financial aid at them, notwithstanding what their rapacious leaders get, you're essentially you're setting up a situation where, where you get what's happening to Europe right now. These people would have normally been, it's a, RK selection. These people follow a more R selected trajectory, and we're altering that, and that's not charity.
Yeah, this is an interesting topic. Again, going back to a personal example, when we were first supporting, I may have mentioned this before on one of these, but when the Syrian migrant thing was happening, and our church was sponsoring a migrant, I went in quite distraught to my priest, and I did a number of YouTube videos on kind of my conversation, what was going on there. But for him, it was just, it was very simple, in terms of sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. But he was looking at it as like person to person. It was like, there's a person in front of me who's hungry. And some of them even are Christians, I suppose. And therefore I must give them food or give them shelter. And I was like, but this is going to have enormous ramifications. And for him, it was sort of like, that's not our job to sort out or to think about. Our job is just simply to do the simple thing that we know needs to be done. But the same priest will complain about technology. He reads Illich, and he will go on in preaching about the problems of modernity and technology. Well, this charity that we are offering these people isn't completely bound to technology. When we send medical aid, that's a technology. Just being able to send food in the way that we can now to across the globe to assist people is bound to our technological power and prowess. The fact that we can then allow them into our countries, even though we're setting up the conditions for the destruction of our own people. This is, again, bound to technology. So it seems like, I mean, we can go back to, is it Malthus? Yeah, Malthus.
Yeah, the overpopulation.
Yeah. I mean, he seems so vulgar, so crude, and yet, we created a buffer zone between Malthus and ourselves, and almost mimetically, I think, as a response to Malthus. Right? We're going to prove this guy wrong. He's a nasty old curmudgeon, and we're just going to feed the whole world. Right? This is this kind of response, and he was an Anglican. He's one of my tribe, and so it seems like we're not going to be able to, I mean, somehow we have to engage in a more complex conversation. I mean, this is kind of taking us maybe a little bit further down the road we wanted to about these things. I agree with you, LUMEN. Like, it's not necessarily charity, but the conversation just simply has to be more complex, but
reasonable.
And reasonable, yeah. And it has to be done by authorities that are wise and smart to make these decisions. Leave it democratic, and it's going to be a feminized morality. And we'll always give.
Yeah, the charity needs to be based on reason, not just flowery emotions and this virtue signaling or these feel good vibes that people just want to load themselves up with. That's not. I don't think that's what real charity is. Real charity is actually like there's no sense in like throwing food at them, if they're not going to be able to change themselves or to improve themselves. It's sort of like if you feel sorry for like maybe like a poor group of cats in your neighborhood, and you start giving them a lot of food, and then all of a sudden you got tons of cats all over their place, and they're running around, killing birds and, spreading fleas all over the neighborhood, and the person who did that initially was their heart was in the right place, but they made the wrong decision on how to actualize or to make that charity like something that would actually be beneficial. So charity needs to be, it cannot be such this carefree throwaway type of charity that's done these days. It needs to be rooted
altruism.
in it.
No, it's not altruism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up another thing. We have to be able to accept the fact that people die, and that there is tragedy in the world. And by feeding people, we're only creating often just more tragedy. If you got a group of hungry people and you haven't taught them how to, and maybe it isn't even your job, it's actually your job to let them sort that stuff out, let them war, let them figure it out, right? Instead of constantly band-aiding and bolstering their dysfunction.
And then in the case of Syria,
dysfunction has something to do with colonization, yes, but more colonization is not the answer then. So
no. Yeah, and in your example of Syria, William, it actually makes things worse. You can do more for these people by supporting them in their home or on the border of their home, and when you're allowing their men, and it is largely fighting age men, to leave, leaving aside the jus in bellum, with the whole Syria thing, you're not helping. You're making things worse, and altruism, and I don't mean to make broad, sweeping generalizations about people. It's often there's often a lot of cowardice in it. There's a lot of intellectual laziness and unwillingness to face reality, and it's not charity.
Yeah. Something William said reminded me of a thought I've had about just the world we live in. Like he said, we have to come to grips with the fact that, death is a part of life and that tragedy does occur. I think the problem with a lot of people today is we're so used to having this mentality that nothing bad should ever happen ever. That if something bad ever happens, that's a sign that something's wrong and that the world needs to be fixed. But it used to be in the old days, people did have to struggle through their whole lives and they had to fight for survival regularly. So this sort of a world we live in today where we expect everything to turn out well, where we expect everything to go the way we want it to, or else something's severely wrong, then it's kind of mentally we are detached from reality in that sense.
Yeah.
And maybe in some ways that makes maybe in some ways that does make it harder to really understand what love is, because it just makes us think that everything being good all the time is the way it's supposed to be, and so everybody being happy all the time, it's I think pleasure equals good, and therefore any denial of pleasure is therefore bad and evil.
Yeah, it's fundamentally based on a completely hollowed out metaphysics and no sense of hope or faith or spirituality. All there is, it's kind of a materialized, again, we're going back to these same problems, right? It's a materialized Christianity where the prime function of Christianity, and we get this even with this Pope, right, is suffering alleviation. This is, and not spiritual, not through the sacraments, but suffering, literal, physical suffering alleviation. This is it takes a while to get your head around this when you've kind of grown up in this. I must admit, I used to kind of at least have that kind of deep in my thinking, and only hanging out with all these nasty people has kind of allowed me to kind of see, to see through that and see that, that isn't really love, and also it's really making a god of our capacity to assist in a way. It's and the only thing that's important is this material body, this material world. If people are losing out in this material world, well, we don't really believe in the next one. A lot of Christians even don't anymore, even faithful communicating ones. So, yeah.
Yeah, even Christ said we'd always have the poor.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you're not going to get rid of the poor. It's that they're always going to be there. Of course, we have to try to help, but again, it needs to be done with your rationality.
Welcome, Gray.
Hello.
Hey,
Hello.
Variable.
Glad to finally be able to make it back.
Yeah. I guess you were working last time.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually didn't. It's about a month since we did the last one, just because I was really busy this past month, so I didn't have time to do one. I actually worked like 8 straight days last week.
Yeah, it's never fun.
Yeah. But we're just talking about love. Do you have any thoughts on love that we haven't already touched on from what you've heard? Like, what do you think it means to be? What do you think Christian love really is? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I always go back to principally Christ and his love for us, but it's sacrificial, but it's not a submissive love. I think sometimes in Christianity we think of it as a kind of a feminized love. But
Yeah.
What is it in Hebrews? It says he chastens those whom he loves. So it's certainly not a make you feel nice and I want you to be happy and get your way and feel good about things.
Mm-hmm.
Gray, you just kind of sparked a thought in me, and I really appreciate it. Christ's love is boundless, but it's not free, and this is kind of what sadly many modern Christians and various atheists or pagans or Wiccans or whatever who like to use Christ would tell you to do what I'm telling you to do on their Twitter timeline. This is kind of what they've done. They're trying to make it into something that's just free, and it's not free. It is boundless. It is it's all consuming. It's who was it? Pascal, is that famous quote when he was feeling the ecstasy of Christ's love, and he's like, fire, fire. It's all consuming, but it's not free. You don't just get it because.
Yeah, and be in love, we are to be obedient. It's easy to, misuse it like you were saying, you're free. Not quite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love is a door.
I was on ahead.
You sure?
You can go ahead, William.
Yeah, love is.
I didn't really have anything.
Sorry. Love is a door, obviously open to. I mean, the gospel is open to all, right? But once in, then love is transformative, and love is a consuming fire. So it's not. And the radical hospitables, whatever you want to call them, they want it just to be forever an open door policy with no requirements. I mean, obviously, as Paul teaches, there is no requirement and there is no way of earning the status. That does not mean that there still isn't a profoundly transforming process of love that takes place. And if it isn't taking place, it means you aren't availing yourself of that love.
And I was mentioning to Ian last night or sometime recently speaking of transformation, it's the love of Christ when you decide that you want it, and when you begin to understand, as Gray mentioned, that it requires obedience. And there's the the kind of the Christian cliche of as a man, I want to change. I can't. I've tried, but Christ can change you, and the love of Christ transforms. It brings us closer to being in the being in the image of God.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Well, that's kind of what the Orthodox view of theosis is, right? That we're coming closer to reflecting, like it's like we're transforming our minds into the mind of God, or as an ongoing process. Like we're conforming our minds to God's mind. That's like part of the path of salvation. Is that similar to what you're saying?
Yes, it's like the it was the I can't remember who it was, but it was the reading this past Sunday about living more in the spirit rather than living in the flesh. And this is a tremendous struggle for man. Some far more than others, but it is possible through Christ, through the transformation in Christ, and that is love. The love of God is it's beyond measure, it's beyond comprehension, it's beyond anything with which we have to compare it, and it's an invaluable gift. This is God's love for the world was such that he gave us his only Son, and so it is a transformation, and you can look at the saints. You can St. Augustine comes to mind. Just he was a libertine, and the great transformation in him, or even just people and this love is it's just so foreign to the world. It's now more than ever, it's foreign to people, and but it's the only love that really counts. I mean, we do our the love we have for our family and for our spouse is of course vital, but we're in exile here. We're on a pilgrimage, and we're hopefully getting closer, to, as I mentioned earlier, through Christ's love, becoming closer to the image of God.
Yeah, we should be, at least. I mean, I do feel like in the last year, just reflecting more on my faith, I've been sort of, it really has been sort of changing the way I think of things. I mean, even being involved with the alt-right, I still feel like in some ways I'm more, I'm starting to, okay, well, all this political stuff is what it is, but ultimately it's like I'm being drawn more to focusing more on like faith and trying to, oh, hey, Bill Marchant is here. Hello, Bill.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
What are we talking about?
We're talking about love.
Ooh, very nice.
Isn't there a song like
What
that?
it means to
talking
be
about that?
a Christian and to love others.
David Lee Roth or Sammy Hagar?
That was Ain't Talking About Love was a
Hey-o.
David Lee Roth song.
Bon Scott or Brian Jones? Oh, I thought we were talking about.
No, it's Brian Johnson, I thought.
Oh, it's true.
Brian
It's
Jones
Brian
is the
Jones.
guy from the Rolling Stones.
Ah, it's true.
Gotcha. No.
I gotta say David Lee Roth and Bon Scott. But anyway, it's way off the topic now. Kill Bill or Bill Marchant?
Bill Marchant right now. Because it's what time is it right now? It's, almost 8. I'm not Kill Bill until later.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
okay.
Kill Bill, is this a new thing?
Yeah,
Kill Bill?
yeah. Kill Bill
Your
was had a bad week and just put him on for a little while. Done by Henry Gloucester. How do you pronounce that last name?
Gloucester, I think.
Gloucester? Yeah.
Well, isn't he back to being Giovanni Alighieri?
Oh, yeah, he is. Yeah.
Changes
So,
his name every 2 seconds. Come on.
The most profound identity crisis on Twitter.
I think he says Giovanni.
Other than maybe Bill Marchant.
I probably got rid of the reactionary Ian name on here, if anybody noticed.
Oh, you're just
I think
Ian.
it's well, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm Ian TD Wilson.
TD. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
And we all know what TD stands for, of course.
touchdown.
No, not that.
Total denial?
Look at my avatar.
Today,
Theodore Dalrymple.
Oh, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, but TD is for else. Just makes it a little more distinctive, I guess.
Makes sense.
So, yeah,
Who is your avatar?
that's Theodore Dalrymple. He's a writer that I like, and I used to read him a lot when I was first kind of going down this path.
Oh, I see.
Have you ever read him?
No, I've never heard of him.
Oh, he's really good. You should check him out. I mean, he's not quite like a dissident, but he's good at sort of questioning aspects of modern life in sort of a normie-friendly way.
Okay.
So there's that, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's like I wouldn't call him like an alt-right type of person necessarily, or a reactionary, or whatever word you want to use.
Kind of like a Pat Buchanan or something.
yeah, it's pretty much like a
Sort of.
paleocon.
Yeah, that's about right, I guess. Of course, he's British, so it's a little different than the American version. And even I don't know if he'd go so far as to talk about, Enoch Powell type stuff. Excuse me. Like he doesn't really criticize Islam sometimes, but you know how that is. It's like he kind of stays in the safe zone. But he is good at sort of just getting ideas out there. But anyway.
It's the rainbow spectrum of the right.
Yeah.
So what does Bill think about love?
I'm a big fan, just generally.
Yeah. Bill, do you feel like as a Christian you try to have a spirit of love in what you do? Or is that just I mean, I think that's something even as Christians we forget a lot of the time, that we really do need to have a loving spirit toward others, and it needs to be godly.
Yeah, and I think that ties into something that is somewhat related, is the forgiveness aspect of things. Is that people can make mistakes, but you know that they are still God's creatures. They're still like lovable, you know. So that's why I don't hate a lot of people, and that's a part of it, is because we're supposed to love people even when they're making mistakes. It's the love the sinner, hate the sin type mindset, and there's obviously ways that you can go wrong with that, but I think that it's important to keep in mind that these are all people, and they were all created by God, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it is, to relate back to the experience I was talking about earlier, I realized that when you do try to act in a spirit of love, sometimes when you see these people, and even though you might rebuke them for being false teachers, you still, there is a part of you that where your heart really does break for them. And
Yeah.
I think maybe that if we do love people, our hearts should break for people who are sinners, like, because we realize that, you know, it might make me mad that they're doing this or that. It might, you know, might make me mad that they're spreading a false gospel. It might make me mad that they're being rude to me or whatever. But like, ultimately, like, you should realize that this sin in their life, this is something that separates them from God, and it's something that will lead them down the path of destruction, and that should break our hearts.
Yeah, it's
if we really have
hurting
a spirit
them.
of love.
Yeah, it's as much as it hurts everyone else, it's also the things that they're doing are also hurting themselves.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it is, as I was saying earlier, I don't think that the leftist Christianity that I see really has a spirit of love to it. I mean, they'll get all up on the high horse about, why don't you try being loving to people? Like, you know, I love people, meaning I tolerate everything and anything, which proves that I'm more loving than you. And yet it's like when somebody disagrees with them, they don't show any love to the person. You know, they like having people that they can demonize. They like having people they can point to and say, those are the bad people, and it's permissible to hate them. Like, whether it be conservatives or, you know, the rich, TM, or things like that. It really is just a form of, I mean, I guess I'm repeating myself at this point, but it's like there really doesn't seem to be any love for these people. It doesn't seem like they want, like they wish anything good for these people. It's like they just feel self-righteous, and that gives them a rush.
Yeah, but you do find the odd kind of leftist person who actually, you know, is committed in a way to their kind of liberalized worldview thing. But at the same time, they actually quite suffer the pain of love when they're confronted with somebody on the right that is countering. So there is a truly, you know, a large continuum of personalities, and not just personalities, but kind of responses or places where people are. So I think you have to be. I mean, this is probably for us. I mean, we're talking, you know, maybe about Twitter or something, because this is a way we do communicate. Well, all of this, the only reason I know any of you people, any of us brothers here, is because of this online community. So can hardly poo-poo it. But if you have to listen carefully. You can't just, you know, just because you don't agree with somebody's point of view, you can't just pigeonhole them as being they're just that kind of person, as if that even makes sense. You know, some people are pretty kind of, you know, almost like factory stamped out kind of, you know, progs or leftists. But you know, most people aren't. And if you troll with love, you can actually begin to get them to weaken their position a little bit. You can get them to see through.
Yeah, it's funny, the idea of trolling with love. I mean, but it is true. Like, I mean, I try not to be like, you know, not that I'm always perfect at this. I'm not saying I'm an expert at, I never mess up, but there are times when I think you have to kind of step back and realize, you know, at the end of the day, I should be trying to help this person, not just trying to make them feel bad or win. Which I guess I said already, but
well, you have to draw a distinction. You know, I mean, there's you know, there have been times when, if I see that someone is sincere in, you know, being hurt or whatever, in you know, how I've approached, you know, if I've trolled them or whatever, then I'll step back and I'll say, hey, you know, I'm sorry if I got personal, but this and that, and I'll try to engage them, and that's love. But you also have to make that distinction of, you know, not giving what's holy to dogs, not throwing your pearls before swine.
Yeah, one of the things that happened to me when I like after I kind of fell in with the alt-right is like after the red pilling and stuff. I was so angry, and like sometimes I would just get online and I would just lash out because it's like when you first transition, it's like the world that you lived in is now different, and it's like you feel like you just got stabbed in the back, not by somebody, but you and you're just filled with rage. And that was one of the reasons I had to step back for a while, and I was just like, this anger was eating me up inside, and I just had to I needed to back away from it for a while and refocus myself and reconnect with Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Definitely, I've been there too.
Anyway, I'm really sorry, guys. I have to go, but I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to the next time.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Tom. It was good to have you back with us.
Thanks, Tom. God bless.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope we see you next time.
All right. Thanks. God bless, guys.
Good night.
Night.
Oh, there's like a lot of air noise that just went off the line.
It was the hissing
Guess we know
badger.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's occurred to me.
Go on.
It's occurred to me, while we're having this discussion that it always occurs to me that when you become a Christian and when you do your best to really live as a Christian, to learn about your faith and to live it, there is always an answer. And often, especially these days, that answer is at odds with the rest of the world, but there's always an answer. And, for this topic, if you just take the concept of the kingdom of God, which is essentially repentance for the forgiveness of sins, love of God with all your being, and love of your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you can try to live by those three things, you will at least you'll have a good start on properly and effectively living your life with proper Christian love. Did I break the chat again?
No, sorry, I was typing something in the text chat while you were talking.
I'm just joking.
Chat breaker.
Dirty chat breaker. Okay. Bill and Grace stepped away from their computers momentarily, so I guess it was up to either me or William to say something in response to that. So sorry, I dropped the ball there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a difficult age we live in, I mean, I suppose Christianity was born, as we've, has been said, and we've said here, I'm sure before, in an age pretty much like this, multicultural, kind of broken, various commitments to belief and various moral codes and so forth. And it's just, when it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, and to love your neighbor as your heart, soul, and mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. There's almost kind of an assumption that this is being said into a reasonably functional social setting, right? Where there is some commonality. Yeah. There's a kind of an assumed commonality. I mean, and Jesus wasn't preaching to the empire. He was preaching to a troubled group of people, but he was preaching to a cohesive community of people as well. He was preaching essentially, well, there wasn't just the poor. He was preaching to his people. He was preaching to a group. So it's much more difficult when you're kind of mean, I suppose it's times of persecution or whatever, but anyway, I'm not necessarily making any comment other than it gets kind of, this is where these things get kind of befuddled, because it's, if you're just kind of in a reasonably healthy community and you're loving your neighbor, that's, it's pretty easy. They need something, you give it to them. You help them in ways you can and stuff like this. But when you're looking at the kind of community we're in, where we actually have like rabid enemies of the church, enemies of political enemies and so forth, it's quite different. It's not that quite easy to navigate that complexity, at least for me. It certainly isn't. And I do, I've gotten, and still do sometimes, just get kind of a little bit rage filled sometimes over things that are happening or something I see. There was a video that triggered me badly the other day. I was ranting and raving to myself in my room.
That's how I felt when I listened to the Daily Show the other day.
Oh,
that
yeah.
One. Did you listen to that one?
Is this in front of or behind the paywall?
It's the one they released the other day, which is in front of the paywall. It's for everybody.
Oh.
So yeah, they're talking about like how like the pharmaceutical industry.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
That did make me pretty mad when I was listening to it. Like just the usual stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be this way, but we're being poisoned by people who hate us. And well, we're not going to get into that here. But that was.
Well, it does bring up the question about love, like, and this community thing I was talking about. It's a perfect example. It's like, okay, well, these people are officially in our community because they're part of our market. I mean, how do you define these things? Or neighbor? I mean, they're not really your neighbor, I suppose. But I mean, these are vile, predatory people. What does it mean to show love to them?
Well, but again, you don't throw your pearls before swine, and you wish the best for your enemy. And I mean, for the fifth mystery, the fifth decade of the joyful mysteries, the finding of Jesus in the temple, I always include the Jews along with a few other categories of people that they'll find Jesus, and that is love. It doesn't mean that you overlook evil. It doesn't mean that you
don't oppose it.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean that's how you and what that means is that I mean the Crusaders prayed for the Mohammedans, before they slaughtered them, and it's that's kind of that's regarding the society we live in, that you render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's, and unfortunately, or fortunately, this puts Christians in a position sometimes where we actually become martyrs, like physical martyrs.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this time we live in really does separate the wheat from the chaff. Can you hear me?
It is. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it is a time of sifting. That's for sure.
Yeah, something that I just wanted to add that just came to me now is the people that say things like, well, Jesus hung out with prostitutes and whoever else, adulterers and all that. No, he didn't. He hung out with former prostitutes and former adulterers and said, go and sin no more. They were no longer...
Yeah.
Like the qualification for hanging out with Jesus is not sinning anymore. Stop doing the thing that you're doing. Not everyone is cool all the time, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good distinction to make there. Yeah.
And the bit that we were talking about before is who is your neighbor. I think that that is an incredibly important thing to talk about that isn't talked about nearly enough in church or anything like that. I haven't heard any like preacher or anything talk about the distinction that should be made between the people who are your enemy, like the national enemy or whoever, people that are actually trying to kill you, and your neighbor. Like, your neighbor isn't just every single person in the entire world. Otherwise, he would say the phrase would be love every single person in the entire world. There has to be qualifications to it. And same with love your enemy. I was reading a while ago that the word used there for enemy is different from, for example, in the Old Testament when they were referring to the Moabites, where these are people that if we get together with them, they will slaughter us. Whereas when it's love your enemy, it's more like the guy down the street that you don't like. You know, so I think it's important to make these distinctions. Otherwise, you get sucked into the leftist rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that like enemy in that sense it's more like somebody who maybe has personally wronged you, but not like somebody who's trying to kill you.
But again, my example of the Crusaders. These are the mortal enemies of Christians. And the Muslims are, they're not only advocates of this heretical creed, but they pose an existential threat, and you pray for them. Welcome, Loretta. I mean, you do pray for them, but that doesn't mean that you lay down your life for them. And as far as who's your neighbor, I have heard a homily on that, and it was after the parable of the Good Samaritan. So again, it could conceivably be anyone in the world. That doesn't mean that you look for them. It doesn't mean that you look for neighbors, in Somalia and say, we have some space in Minnesota or whatever. But if you see someone in need, and in the parable there is the Pharisees wouldn't touch certain groups, and so yes, I mean, your neighbor could be anyone, but again, there are limits. You don't give what is holy to dogs, and as far as loving your enemy, again, you're just wishing the best for them, and the best we have to believe as Christians is that someone comes to Christ, they stop sinning, they do their best to love God with all their being, which will take them away from all of the things that are making them your enemy in the first place.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree completely.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Good Samaritan in there because that's often used as a kind of blanket statement, meaning I think you were just kind of intimating that or saying that. Maybe I was looking at the chat too much and didn't hear hang on your every word, Bill. I'm sorry, but it was it sort of just uses meaning, well, that your neighbor, like you say, is just everybody now. Well, this doesn't quite make sense, and nor is that story a completely open-ended story. It's a very particular kind of relationship. He doesn't befriend somebody trying to kill him. He befriends somebody who was beaten up by robbers.
Exactly.
The robbers aren't engaged as neighbors.
Yeah, it's a certain situation, but it also ties in with the rest of the gospel and the church traditions. Which in the case of what I'm talking about is, you don't extend that same courtesy, to the, whatever, Muhammad on the ground, with a suicide vest who, that hasn't exploded yet, and you reach out to him.
Love you, neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
all Muhammad, my neighbor, needs is some loving.
Heidi ho, neighbor.
Heidily ho, bang bang, neighbor.
Heidily hodily, splody bloaty.
Splodily wodily. Yeah.
I was trying to be Wilson from Home Improvement there.
Oh, I thought you were Ned Flanders.
No, Tim.
Oh, that's
Okay.
right, Wilson. Yeah.
You guys face universe off completely.
Philosopher on the other side of the fence. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a great book on anthropology about this. Anyway.
Oh, yeah. Anthropology.
Only 90s kids will get this. So.
Or old men.
Anyway. What's that?
Yeah, that went over my head. So.
You didn't watch Home Improvement growing up?
I did. That was a long time ago when I was young.
Okay.
You don't remember the mysterious neighbor with his face half hidden by the fence?
No.
Yeah,
not
like
at all.
the running
Tim
joke was that like every angle they showed him, something would be obscuring his face, so you never completely saw his face. Like you'd see his eyes usually, but that was about it.
That's the only thing I remember about that show, honestly. I mean, I never really watched it too much, but I remember that because...
Yeah, you might have been a little too old for that one. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was... Someone I knew watched it, you know, so I would, you know, see it here. It's, you know, once in a while I'd see it, but I do remember that, and that's about it.
Okay. It's all good. But anyway, we're talking about our neighbors, so yeah, I mean,
Wilson would definitely count as a neighbor.
Yes, definitely. He definitely helped out Tim a lot. I remember. Well, I'm not gonna we shouldn't be talking about Home Improvement. We should be talking about serious things.
Yes. Yeah.
But but yeah, I think that neighbors do, like, there might be different levels of, what am I trying to say here? Like somebody who's in your vicinity who might need your help, who's not like trying to hurt you, I think could be considered your neighbor, and like somebody who you have the ability to help. But I mean, I think some people could argue that, I mean, maybe it's a different topic altogether, but the idea of like circles, like first help those closest to you, then from there help, like based on levels of closeness are the levels of duty you have toward that person. Like you should help your family first, then your neighbors, then your extended community, etc. Like, so but I mean, if some, like in the case of the Good Samaritan, somebody who maybe isn't part of your tribe or who you don't have a personal connection to could still be your neighbor, just in the fact that you're there and you have the ability to help the person.
Well, again, that's that. You know, in Catholicism, we have the concept of subsidiarity. You know, you know, I don't know. You know, the parish priest shouldn't get involved in disciplining the children. You know, there's a sensible way to do these things.
Right. There should be a proper hierarchy.
Always hierarchy.
Yep. Hierarchy is natural, normal, and healthy. It's not an aberration, despite what liberals will tell you.
It always forms anywhere people are.
It's why communism fails.
Because it filters the worst sort of people to the top.
Yeah.
It's not that they even deny, let's get off topic a little bit, not that they even deny the hierarchy, but it's just a terrible selection filter for authority. Anyway.
Yeah.
Getting back to liberals in love, I try to keep in mind that when they do talk about, oh, you're not loving, well, the love they're speaking of is an adulterated one. You can't be loving and promoting a falsehood through that.
You mean the falsehood being liberalism?
Yeah.
Or just liberal ideas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Bill said in the chapter I'm reading out of his book for the thing. It's like polyamory rather than like a faithful relationship. You know, liberal love is just polyamory. You know, has no shape. No.
That's an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
polyamory?
It's cowardice. It's cowardice. It's laziness. It's you know, and you know, this is you know, it's kind of like how, you know, Satan actually uses the concept of good for what he does. You know, I mean, it's a you know, evil is quite often just a corruption of what is good. It's just, you know, it's something that's, you know, like material comfort, which we all need to a certain extent. It's just exaggerated or perverted or gained by you know, unscrupulous means. And this is what you know, your modern liberal does, is they've taken the Christian concept of love, because, you know, like it or not, they are in a sense Christians, you know, because Christianity shaped the West, and they're just they are using, you know, the you know, the foundation, the underlying concept, and just sort of perverting it, you know. So they're getting, they feel that they're getting the benefit, you know, out of love, which, again, you know, as Gray reminded me, is it's something that's not free. You don't get it for free. You know, there's you get it through obedience to God. You get it through sacrifice. You get it through piety, and they're bypassing all that, and you know, thinking that, you know, the same way that an evil man thinks that you know, he's you know, he's not a sucker. You know, he's not he's bypassing all these difficulties that normal people go through, you know, that try to live ethically. And so that's kind of what liberals do with their concept of love. Yeah, it's just, you know, a very clear and simple analogy is, you know, the stupid whatever flag they put up on their profile picture, you know, for this week or this day's terror attack.
Yeah, until that runs out of steam, just because it's happened so often doesn't mean anything anymore. Oh, Sweden
It's
again.
a very cowardly form of love. Sorry, I'm speaking to the mic. This kind of tolerance and liberalism, as you know, liberalism is almost like like an attempt to institutionalize love, to turn love into
It is, yeah,
into the machine of the state. You know, we're just going to, love is what pumps the machine of the state, stamps out love. But it's completely cowardly. It requires no risk, no. I mean, they say it does. I mean, they still talk about, you know, people dying of AIDS as being brave. They still talk about people coming out as being brave. They still talk about any kind of these things. They speak about them in terms as if there's a cost involved, but there's zero cost involved, almost zero. It certainly isn't a cost
until they meet their maker.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, all the language is the same. You know, love, like you just said, bravery, all these things. Oh, you're so brave. But it's been stripped of what it truly is and just filled with this poison.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, like as they say, the devil will put a small bit of truth in with the lie to make it seem real.
But again, I mean, this is you know, often, if not usually, you know, the case of evil. Evil is just the procurement of what we naturally desire and need, you know, through you know, nefarious, unscrupulous means, and that's what this is. And you know, William, when you mentioned, you know, the apparatus of the state, you know, taking over, that's exactly what's happened with charity, which is why a lot of people think that, you know, blind, you know, completely detached and devoid of humanity altruism is charity. and charity used to be handled on the ground, by the church and by your neighbor. And again, you get the feels, you get the, like, I did good, I did something, you can give $1, when you're checking out your groceries in line for whatever it is, and you got your feels, and you don't even remember it. It's a I don't know. You guys know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just interesting what we're talking about. I remember even back when I was kind of more of a mainstream conservative. I mean, even like libertarian types will say, like, will say the same thing about how, charity, having the state enact charity on your behalf doesn't make you a good person. Like, if you want to be virtuous, you're not having somebody else, like, take from somebody else and give to somebody else. Like these liberals who vote for like all these programs and whatnot to redistribute the wealth, they think that they think supporting that makes them good people, but it's like, well, no, you're just having some other person take somebody else's money and give it away. Like, that involves no act of, like, even, I think even Penn Jillette, who's an atheist libertarian, he said the same thing, that, like, it doesn't make you a loving person, doesn't make you a virtuous person, it just makes you somebody who's virtue signaling. So, yeah. Because, I mean, the state ultimately doesn't have a heart, it's an impersonal mechanism, I guess you could say. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know what I'm saying.
And inevitably a kind of a vicious bungler too, right? In these matters, right? It's not close enough to people.
Right. So libertarianism, am I right? No. Okay. But yeah, I mean, like, I remember even reading how back in the old days, the way charities operated was that they would, like, let's say you went to a charity and said, I need help financially. First thing they do is they'd hand you an axe and say, okay, we got some wood up back. Do you want to go chop it for me? And that was kind of their way of showing, like, are you just trying to mooch off somebody else's goodwill, or are you actually willing to work but unable to? And like they didn't just like hand it out for no reason. They actually did it, try to, they wanted to ascertain whether it was something that they could, like, I mean, that's real charities, that they didn't just like give away money willy-nilly. They actually made sure they were helping people who really needed it, weren't just discouraging, and they were not just encouraging idleness.
Yeah, because again, Christianity provides us with, very, very simple, effective, and most importantly, based on truth, solutions to any issue that we're going to face. There's nothing new under the sun, and in this case, just the simple, common sense of he who can work and doesn't shall not eat.
Right.
You give that to the state, it's that completely, this is, it actually does become satanic, because it's about power. It's using that for power, whereas a Christian in the church use that for the kingdom of God. And part of love sometimes, in a situation like charity, is saying, you need to motivate, you need to pick yourself up. I think it was Ben Franklin, had that quote, one of the best ways to help the poor is to make it uncomfortable for them to be poor. I'm paraphrasing, but that's pretty much the gist of it. And the less things are handled by people who strive to to not only learn and understand God's love, but try to live by it and bring it to others. You know, the more things get distorted, the more our societies fall apart, the more we fall apart, the more we all fall into disarray, and and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, along the lines of what you're saying, you said there's nothing new under the sun. I think realizing that, like, over the last several years, that's become more clear to me than ever, that it really is, like, the Bible, people might say, oh, the Bible, that was written thousands of years ago, it doesn't mean anything today. Well, it's like I read it today and I see so much truth in it, like so much related to what I observed today, and it's like, wow, this really is true. The Bible really does understand what we face today.
Well, that's because these people. Well, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, go on.
Well,
I just said that's been strengthening my faith. But what were you saying?
Well, it's because these people are projecting. They consider the wisdom of the men who wrote the Bible, and the divine inspiration. They look at it through the lens of their own experience, which is, hey, we just came up with this dopey idea over coffee in whatever, Dresden or Baden-Baden. I'm thinking, the Marxists, and so it's like they can dismiss it because their ideology, their worldview is something that's easily dismissed.
Yeah.
They're superficial.
Exactly.
And we're not.
Yeah. I mean, it's stuff that was based on, generations of experience, when these things in the Bible were formulated and put into words.
I mean, also the Bible has, like, millennia, well, 2 millennia of precedent where it worked. It was whatever, even if you're, like, not Christian, it was a formula that worked, And I mean, to dismiss it outright is crazy. I mean, even if you were, like, an intelligent Marxist, you might say, okay, it worked, but this or this. But, to dismiss it outright is crazy. But, it's all crazy. So.
Well, I think the Marxists would look at something like a biblical worldview and say that, it's all right, but there's not enough equality, or there's still injustice in the world if they see it. So that's the criticism they'd make of it.
Well, von Kuhnelt, the way I understand it best, and I've been thinking about this my whole life, and I'm old, the way I think about it, I see it best, is von Kuhnelt-Leddihn said that Marxism is a heresy of Christianity. And the more I look at it, the more it comes back to that. The Marxism is, it preaches this equality, but I mean, Christians have a soul. I mean, that's how they get their dignity. Marxists go for some equality thing that's going to end in horror. That's how they try to get their dignity. But it really is. It's kind of like the Marxists or the pre-Marxists or whatever saw that Christianity was a winning strategy, and they were like, how can we co-opt this somehow? And they were like, okay, well, we can take it and we can take these teachings of it and we can preach that and kind of try to, like, go under it and kind of, it's like an alt-light to Christianity. I mean, not that, I don't mean that, but but anyway, it's to me, just the more I look at it, the more it makes sense as a heresy of Christianity, and it's not going to get anybody anywhere. And I think a lot of people, even Marxists, know that it's not going to get them anywhere.
Yeah, this would be very E. Michael Jones would agree with you 100% there.
Well, it's about appealing to the base part of man, which is his materialism, and so it's pure materialism, and it's become, as Raymond Darren called it in his book, the opium of the intellectuals. I mean, it's they called Christianity, our religion, the opium of the masses. That Marxism is the opium of the intellectuals. Welcome, Gregory.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
So, what's the
Based
topic?
Romanian is here.
What's the topic, love?
Yep, that's what we're talking about.
We've
Talk about
kept
love.
the topic. We've kept a topic
Yeah.
the whole time.
Yeah, surprisingly, I think this is a record for us.
Oh, go on.
We don't have
Don't
people-
let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
Mr. Lumen, you were talking.
Just keep it clean.
Okay.
Watch the language. We're
Okay.
trying to get more serious about that. So yeah.
Yes, Mom.
How about love? That's another reference nobody gets. Haha, high five. Okay.
You're high-fiving yourself over there, are you?
I guess
Well,
so.
at least I have the excuse of being foreign and not getting the reference.
And you weren't around in the 1940s. Not that I was, but I mean, you don't occasionally listen to songs from that era.
Well, I like Sinatra, Dean Martin, Nat King Cole. I love big band music. Was that the
All the
40s?
crooners. Yeah, it was about that time. 50s.
Fly me to the moon.
Oh yeah. Those velvety pipes of yours.
Oh God, I used to love that romantic portrayal of in Hollywood of that era.
Yeah.
I know this is a cliche, but men were men, women were women. Everyone dressed nicely.
Yep. You sound like an old timer from America.
Yeah, back
Or-
in my day.
But the thing is, like, I think this whole thing about men were men, women were women, it sounds like a cliche. It sounds kind of hokey, but it's true. Like, people do want to have a society where people understand what their role is. People want a society where they understand who they're supposed to be. And this sort of liberal, like, well, you can be whatever you want to be, you know, you don't have to be pigeonholed into this particular role in society. Like, you can do whatever you want. I mean, that just makes people confused and lost. And like,
Well, we do have a Marxist society right now, and Marxists view everything in power dynamics. A more traditional view, we view the world as complementarity. We view the world as puzzle pieces fitting together, including the two sexes. But they don't. They view it in power dynamics. So if you're not winning power, you're losing power, thus you're oppressed.
right.
And they don't really have that much variety on that side. I mean, they talk about it all the time, about this massive spectrum, but I mean, they all dress the same. I mean, lesbian women dress like 8-year-old boys for some reason. I'm not sure why. But I mean, there isn't really a whole lot of variety. You know what I mean? It's sort of, they're all kind of, they're sort of like weird cliches of themselves.
Well,
And
the
it's
less
not.
Straight from the path.
So this idea of men being men and women being women, this is supposed to be too pigeonholed. I mean, there's a lot of varieties of men and women.
Yep. Yes.
yeah.
I think this is an area where the alt-right could recruit a lot of non-whites, honestly, because, you know, it's pretty universal that people do not like this, you know, the transgender and various, you know, variations of what's going on. People don't like it. It doesn't sell. People do not like it. And if the alt-right was interested in getting a wider base and going after, you know, different ethnicities of Christians and stuff like that, I think that that's an idea that really sells. I mean, you take your basic normal human being and they do not like this. They don't like what's being pushed on them.
Well, it depends what you mean on alt-right, because I'm much more comfortable with the label reactionary. The alt-right was sort of a nebulous blob until very recently, but it seems like the more nihilistic white nationalists won in the alt-right, and now they're running it.
Okay, regardless. Okay, fine. So not alt-right, but I could say conservative, I could say reactionary.
Yeah.
Whatever. My point still stands that, you know, that this idea has a lot of It has a lot of appeal to a very broad spectrum of people, that people don't like men and women not existing anymore. This is a paradigm that people have lived with forever. It occurs in the natural world, and people just instinctually really baseline dislike it. Unless they've been to college and they've been fed a load of hooey and they're deranged, people do not like it. It does not sell. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is it's something, it's got a broad appeal. It's something that you can go out and you can say to a wide range of people, do you want men dressed as women? No, we don't. So, I mean, I think it's got legs that way.
I think you were saying about trying to reach a broader audience. I do think that the kind of more reactionary / traditionalist wing of the alt-right does appeal to a lot of people, and it's not necessarily just about white nationalism like some of the more mainstream alt-right people are. Like, I think that, like, even I remember a while back I read something on Matt Heimbach's website where this guy was talking about how he's a Muslim and but he's like about embracing his own cultural traditions and things like that. So I think that listening to an interview with Matt Heimbach where he talked about the like when they were doing that sort of like traditional trad youth, I guess is what they were calling it. He was saying, like, it's not necessarily about white people. Like, if a group of black students wanted to start their own chapter of trad youth, they could do that, and it would be about their own tradition. So I think for people who are more on the traditional side, there is already, I guess you could say, outreach, or it's like it is sort of like racially neutral as far as that goes. And there are some people out there who embrace it, though perhaps I would say, just given the state of our society at the time, non-whites living in the West they're still kind of outsiders to it, so they're not necessarily trying to embrace tradition the way white people at the current time feel the need to.
Well,
But,
there is such a thing as a human soul, and it's about the resonance frequency of the human soul. When you're doing something that feels fulfilling and right, you don't have to be high IQ or high agency to know you're doing it right, because the basis of being human is there in almost all people. So that's why they like it. They're human. It's as simple as that. It's not ideology. It's not. People want to love their wives. Why is that complicated? I want to love my wife. So it's not even up for debate. The Marxists are totally wrong on this. We're supposed to live in a harmony. You're supposed to break your back all day and come home to something that loves you or someone. And now we get more affection from our dogs because your wife is afraid.
I absolutely agree. It's totally degenerate. Like, the dog thing is insane. I love dogs. I love dogs, but yeah, you're totally right.
Here we go with the DQ again.
The DQ.
well, I have two dogs,
Gregory, you had said someone or something. I mean, doesn't that imply that dogs are okay? As a living person you come up to.
So if you don't lie to yourself, dogs are okay, because I'm a lover of animals in general. I think that we were placed on this earth to be its stewards, and just like the angels are above us, we're above animals. So as a steward of this planet, as we guide their destiny, and capacity for suffering or emotion is not equal in the animal world. So you have things like goldfish or cats that don't really attach themselves emotionally to you. But dogs genuinely love you back. They release.
I think cats do too. They just don't show it as much.
No. They really don't, because
Yeah,
dogs
it's
are
definitely two different
Can't
things.
cross 'em.
dogs are naturally pack animals, so their brains are evolved to attach themselves. But cats are solitary by nature. Even when mating, cats only mate through rape.
Yeah, they love you so much they'll eat you when you die.
Yeah. Dog will curl up.
Well,
Dog will
you
curl up
can't-
and lie down and die beside you, and a cat will
Well,
eat
you can't really blame them for that. They don't have common sense, so they don't see anything wrong, and this is the logic of nature. They don't see anything wrong in eating you. It's not like even dogs do that when they're starving, not like cats, which don't even wait till you die. But dogs are really nice sports, and they're idiots. They have the intellect of a 3-year-old. It's hard not to love them, but don't use them to patch up a hole that a woman should fill. You know what I mean?
Or
Or
a child.
children. More often, children. More often.
Yeah, it's
children.
funny you should bring
Yeah.
that up, because today I was witness a fellow was talking to a woman, son that's going to be born in a few months, and what he was going to name him, and then she goes, "Oh, when I get a boy dog, I'm going to name him such and such." And you just got to go, no, there's no comparison. No.
Oh my goodness.
I find that awful. I find that so scary as a mom. I find it so scary that when people act like that and talk like that. It's terrifying to me. It's like where and I have dogs and they're great. They're dogs. They're dogs. You know, it's terrifying. I mean, and it's really like when I was a kid, you know, we studied ancient Rome and we studied the degeneracy of ancient Rome. And there was, I think it was Caligula was marrying his horse, or one of his generals was marrying his horse. And we've seen this kind of like disgusting bestiality, basically. It's bestiality that, you know, we're seeing now. And it's, you know, it's a bad indicator, very bad indicator.
Yeah, when you would use an animal as a replacement for your own flesh and blood.
Let's not.
It's terrifying, and you're debasing yourself. Like I see all these women on Twitter. And I've joked about this before. I see these women on Twitter who are like, "I'm a dog mom." I'm like, that sounds like an Arabic curse, mother of dogs. You know?
Yeah, I used to work with this guy. He was a raging liberal, and they had some commercial on the TV, and they were like, "Oh, pet parents." And this guy was kind of, like I said, very liberal. He's sitting there yelling at the TV, "They're not children. You can't be a pet parent."
Yeah.
Or even worse, the fur
leave it
babies.
to modern culture to turn something innocent and nice into something degenerate.
I hate all this counter signaling of cats. I like cats.
Well, I love them. I like them too. They're cute, but they're monsters.
That's
Well,
because they're virus.
Once you get to know them, they're nice though.
You know how like everybody's gay when they go to prison? Okay, if you go to jail, you automatically become gay, right? Because there's no of the opposite sex, right? So it, you know, I think that's what's going on with this you know, trend with pets and society in general. When you take God away, people, you know, people look for other things to substitute where God was before. You know, people fill that vacuum. And it seems like this is what's going on. You know, things have, you know, the family's been taken away. It's like when you go to jail and there's no member of the opposite sex, then you gravitate towards the same sex. That's what's going on with pets. You know, it's like when you are in a world where you can't have a family, well, you want a family. And if that family is going to be your cat or your dog, then you're going to gravitate toward that cat-dog family that you can afford and you can support and is culturally accepted.
Well, human, in regards to the gay thing, human sexuality is a bit complicated, and I don't mean in the way liberals do, like it's on a spectrum or something. The problem is that our bodies are beasts. So when my dog humps my leg, it's not a legosexual. It's just rubbing something against another thing. It's just satisfying a base impulse. So, can you hear me? Did I cut off?
No, you're there.
Nope.
Oh,
I hear you.
okay. So, in terms of this thing about being gay is really an invention of the 1970s. humans didn't view gay people as their own thing. They viewed them as normal people who sin. You don't view an alcoholic as being some type of separate category of human like the gays did. But the gays in the United States tried to fight back against the religious right. So they started forming this PR campaign that we were born this way. So by logical conclusion, if you hate someone for a quality they cannot control, you're the bigot, you're the idiot. And they're kind of right. But this whole thing that you're born another way, there's no evidence for it. Honestly, there's no gene that codes for this behavior. So just as you said, prison can turn you gay, rape can turn you gay. Spartans, 100% of Spartans were but pirates. It was social conditioning. So if you're born that way, how can a guy in prison make you that way? It's obviously not. It's a learned behavior. How's about this? 20 years ago, 3% of Britain was queer. Now, over 50% of young British teens declare they're not exactly straight. If it's inborn, what happened in this 30 years? Alex Jones did nothing wrong. What are they putting in the water?
Cats. It's cats. I blame cats.
I think
the water is overemphasized, though. I think I think it's mindset. I hate to say mindset because, mindset sounds like Cernovich. But I think it's more mindset than the water. I really do. I think it's more the mentality and the morale and abstract thought than it is hormones or chemicals or water or anything like that.
Well, estrogen is shattering the male physique because of soy.
Yeah, it's soy and there's birth control in the water and stuff. But I do think that I think it's exaggerated. I think like the recent study that came out about Western men's sperm count. It's basically attributable to obesity.
Well, no, every animal, when you cram it in tight spaces, it usually, the first thing that goes is its social function, then its sexual function, because it's a natural inbuilt mechanism that stops overpopulation. So if you have, for example, my father was raised in a village, and whenever he goes to a city, and he stands in crowded places, he starts feeling nauseous and he starts feeling out of place because most mammals have this overpopulation response and instinct. It's not inherently a bad thing that our populations are going down. Just close the borders because that's what populations are supposed to do. Stop growing at some point. And this is why sperm counts are declining. Because even rats do this. If you cram too many rats, they're gonna start acting weird and antisocial.
That's a really great point. Excellent point. You should put it in writing. Wonderful.
I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that for like several centuries, Britain had essentially zero population growth. It just like they had, but it was only in modern times that the population just like spiked up. But if you look back over the centuries, the population in Britain was pretty stable.
Well, you don't have to be a eunuch, for God's sake. 2 kids are enough for the population to stay the same. So it's not bad to have 2 kids.
Well, you probably want to have 3 just in case some die or don't reproduce or have something like that. So above 2 is the healthy replacement rate.
Every 10 needs to have 3. I think that's how it works.
Yeah, 2.1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still blame cats. Toxoplasmosis is the most horrifying thing in the world.
Yep.
Like that is just insane how prevalent and how much damage it could potentially be doing. We have no idea. Get your cats tested for toxoplasmosis, Ian.
I haven't had a cat in like 10 years. So he died 10 years ago or 11 years actually.
Okay.
So
is it racist? Is it racist that I'm eating watermelon right now?
I think it's cultural appropriation or something.
Well, you guys didn't invent watermelon.
Well, God invented it,
Well, yeah.
right?
Yeah, if you... Can God invent stuff?
Yeah, he creates it.
Yeah, he kind of knows it already, even though it's not invented.
Well, is watermelon like genetically engineered or something? I don't even know the history of watermelon.
Well, there is
The seedless ones
watermelon.
are, yeah.
Well, yeah, that would be.
Well, even and I mean they've been selected. Certainly, you know, original proto watermelon was much smaller than Watermelonus humongous that we get at the grocery store today.
Yeah.
Well, it's why I never understood this. Maybe you guys can enlighten me, you Yanks. It's considered racist to suggest that watermelon and fried chicken is for black people. Those things are delicious. I want them if black people don't have them. Why is it insulting?
To be honest, I never really understood the whole watermelon associated with blacks thing. I mean, I guess they eat it, but it's like it just. I mean,
It's a good fruit for field work, I guess.
Grew up. Well, yeah, I mean, eating watermelon, I don't see why that's obviously, my grandparents aren't black, so.
We ate a lot of watermelon when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Every
my
summer.
grandfather's family would put salt on their watermelon.
What's that?
What?
My grandfather's family put salt on their watermelon, is what I was told. What are we listening to?
My alarm. I'm supposed to wake up and go wage cook.
Oh, you have to leave, Gregory?
Not now. In an hour.
Okay. Well, we don't want to keep you from getting ready for work. Time is so close.
Sorry, can we get back to salt on watermelon? What? What?
Yeah, that apparently when my grandfather was growing up with family, they would actually put salt on their watermelon in it. I think I did try it. It does add a little more flavor to it. It's good.
People don't do that?
It's a sign of true.
Oh, you do that,
It's a
Greg?
sign of true love.
Exactly.
When I was a kid, we just ate watermelon plain, but
One of my old pastors we'd eat watermelon. He'd take a bite, pour a hole, cover it again, take another bite, cover it again.
Wow.
nice. Yeah, it really brings out, adds flavor to it. It's good.
I think the watermelon was flavoring the salt at that point, though.
How many people have watermelon with seeds and that have enjoyed such a thing?
Well, I eat them with seeds. You guys don't eat watermelon with seeds? What kind of barbarity is that?
Well,
Future's
it's
friendly.
the way they
huh?
make seedless watermelon because I read the seedless oranges came because there was some orange tree grew that was like by some freak of nature produced oranges without seeds, so they had to take branches from that and like graft them onto other trees, other orange trees, so they can grow more seedless oranges because obviously you can't grow without seeds.
That's like having
So
a woman without a vagina. How can you have oranges without seeds? That's the whole way of reproducing.
It's a freak of nature. It's like it's one of those things that just happens by random
So it's
mutation.
the Blair White of fruit trees.
Okay.
It's a trendy tree. It looks like it's kind of going to reproduce, but it's not.
Just another case
Well,
of, just
like I
because
said,
you can do something
if you-
doesn't mean you
if you
should.
It reproduces by like grafting branches onto other trees, and then it'll like grow more seedless oranges that way. And from there on, you can keep grafting more and more on.
So it's a
Continually
parasite.
reproduce it. Well, if it's engineered, I mean, is it really a parasite?
I just bought a 4 variety apple tree for my yard because otherwise it's self-pollinating then.
Frankentree.
Frankentree.
Was Frankenstein a Jew? I can't remember. I read the book about 4 years
Franken
ago.
Goldstein.
I think it's German.
Frankenbergstein.
No, because he was from a fairly noble German family, and back then they wouldn't have allowed to have been
Well, you had
Jewish
me at
and
noble.
noble.
It can't be a Jew.
Are you meaning the monster or the doctor?
No, the doctor. The monster
Yeah.
wasn't named.
Yeah, it's Frankenstein and Frankenstein's monster.
I think he calls himself Adam at one point. It's a little known part of the book that he's comparing himself to Adam in Paradise Lost, and says that I am in many ways Adam, and that's kind of what you go with for the name if you want the technical name for Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. I mean, it's written by
I'm Jeremy. I'm an abomination. It sounds so plain, Adam, for that hulking monstrosity. Imagine what it would look like. I mean, not in the Hollywood version where you have a handsome guy with bolts in his neck. I mean, imagine something sewn from corpses. Different shades of skin, mismatching bone structure. God.
There was one version, the Frankenstein, the doctor was played by, I can't remember the guy's name. The guy that does all the Shakespeare renditions, the British guy.
Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh. So
where are you?
yeah, so he plays the doctor, and the monster totally looked like what I imagined the monster from the book to look like. I don't remember who played him, but he looked like he was put together from a pile of corpses.
Wait, what movie was that? I'm like a huge Kenneth Branagh fan. He's like my favorite. He was in Dunkirk. I mean, he was hamming it up, but he was still really great.
I think it's just Frankenstein. I don't remember exactly the name of it, whether it has a special name, but it's his version of Frankenstein.
Henry V is his Hamlet, amazing.
Oh, his Hamlet's amazing, yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
The best analogy for Frankenstein's monster is today's liberal in general and the Republican Party, because I was discussing this topic with in the comment section of another video, but the chickens have come home to roost for the American Constitution, because there was nothing in that Constitution that stopped people from being boy body people and castrating their kids when in the 1800s. The problem is that now communists are asking liberals to live up to their principles. And sure, SJWs do exaggerate and are hypocritical, but it's basically the same thing. You can't have freedom for the individual because people are interconnected. So liberals created their own monstrosity, and now they come to us, oh, those bigoted white nationalists, now we have to solve it by libertarianism. This is a problem you guys created. When they started, they didn't start with trannies, they started with liberals. Oh, individual rights, let's focus on the individual, let everybody be free. So it is a Frankenstein's monster because Republicans get the brunt of the left's ire. They don't spend nearly as much attacking neo-Nazis as they do just people from the South who vote Republican. Or
the Republicans are Igor.
Well, Newt Gingrich supports your point, but they're more Dr. Frankenstein because they made this monster.
No, the Republicans are Igor. You know, because they're trying to put down. But look, guys, I got to sign off.
As a Transylvanian, I found that name offensive.
I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, well, Lumen has to get going, but thanks for coming. It's always good to hang with you, Lumen.
Likewise, God bless all, and I'll see you the next time. Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, Lumen.
See ya.
Good to talk to you, sir.
Yeah, Lumen, yeah. You know, Loretta, you were saying you wanted to talk about churches. Is there something specific about that you want to discuss?
I just was interested in denominations. I know that what's your name again, Romanian guy? You are Gregory. I know that Gregory is Orthodox. I've been going to Russian Orthodox, and it's full of like ex-WASPs. I guess they're not WASPs anymore because they're going to an Orthodox church. But believe me, they're still WASPs. They're definitely still WASPs. But yeah, I was just curious because I feel like the big thing, I like talking to a lot of Christians, especially like Christian moms my age. The big thing is that the church is so paused that every church, it seems like every church. I thought it was just me. Like when Obama insulted Christians at that Easter dinner and insulted the Crusades, I cried, and it was embarrassing. I cried to my child's piano teacher, and it was embarrassing because I was so upset. And I wasn't upset by Obama because he's like, whatever, I expect him to insult Christianity. I was upset because I expected that there'd be some like old Catholic guys, like some old Catholic Irish guys getting mad and being like, no, wait a minute, this is wrong. And it's kind of like what I'm seeing with the Southern Baptist Conference right now, where they're like, we condemn the alt-right. And when I was growing up, I'm talking about 80s, 90s, mostly 80s, like the Southern Baptist Conference were the people going, Guns N' Roses is wrong, Aerosmith is wrong. And you had a confidence that there was a belt, there was a backbone, there was a spine of people in this country who would be mad, and they would be mad if something offended them, and they were righteous. And it's scary to me as an adult with little children that I feel like that's gone. It's gone. And I feel like that's a struggle that so many people my age are dealing with, where they're like, where's the backbone? Backbone's gone. We are the backbone now. It's terrifying. It's terrifying to be the backbone when you're not equipped and you've been to college and you're quasi-degenerate yourself, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're an adult and you're the backbone. It's scary. So anyway, so I'm going to Orthodox simply. I'm not a denominational person, by the way. I just feel comfortable there because I'm Catholic, and Orthodox is like pre-Vatican II Catholic to me, okay? I feel comfortable. We're happy, whatever. I'm not denominational. I am, but I'm not like too much. So I'm always very curious as to how people are handling this. Because for me, it's really personal. Like my uncles and aunts were priests. My parents were very devout. I had to go to church every single Sunday until I was 18 years old. I had to go to church. And so I'm wondering how other people are dealing with this, because this is it's like a group therapy session. This is something to deal with. When you see your culture wiped out, and your leaders are bought off and your leaders are betraying you, it's something I think should be talked about. Like, how are you dealing with it? And I see it with the Southern Baptists. I see it with the Catholics. I see it with the I see it all over. So I'm always curious about other Christians, about how you're handling this.
Well,
yeah.
it's
real quick. Hold on. I'll respond to that. But Greg, do you have to leave now?
Yeah, unfortunately, I will have to here. But thanks for having me back.
Well,
hopefully next time I'll be able to join again.
Goodbye, sir.
Yeah.
Very nice talking to you, Greg.
See you next time. Thanks for coming.
All right, y'all take care.
Adios se vaya con Dios.
So anyway, back to what Loretta was saying. Were you saying something in reply to that, Gregory?
Yes. First, we talked about this last time. As long as American Christians feel a sense of ownership on that country, and they're constantly trying to, they have a healthy piece of meat, and they're constantly trying to duct tape a rotting piece of meat to it in order for an abstract sense of unity. If Christians would just see themselves as the persecuted minority that they are, they would turtle and clutter, and a lot of problems would be solved. But you're constantly trying to marry your Christianity with your society, and you can't have a society with Katy Perry and Ariana Grande and religious people. You guys need to get a divorce, and quick. Now, as for orthodoxy, you are curious. There are two intellectual traditions in Christianity. There is the mysticism of the East, and there is the rationalization of the West. The Catholic Church always tried to view its religion by rational means. So they have, even today, the Vatican has astronomers and scientists and so on. The East did not have the wealth and luxury to develop such a scientific and philosophical structure. So the East is much more based on mystery and dogma. That's why the East is resistant to progressivism and change. And this is why Orthodoxy is today more based. However, for a thinking person, if you have a bit of scientific background, Catholicism and its deviated religions are quite okay. Now, someday we will have to marry these two traditions. But until then, our Orthodoxy is a good refuge because first, it's very aesthetically pleasing. And second, it is behind in the pause. However, the very same attacks that Baptists underwent in the late 90s and early 2000s, now people are targeting the Romanian Orthodox Church because we gathered 3 million signatures to change the constitution to make it marriage between a man and a woman. And the mass media started to campaign against the Orthodox Church. Suddenly, gay priests started popping out everywhere, reports on the news, people attacking pro-family people were shown in a positive light in the media, and so on. Things that I'm seeing, it's very terrible. I don't know, you guys can understand it, but I watched your society go through this because I'm quite media savvy, and now it's my turn, and it's horrifying because I know what's going to happen. I almost feel like the guy in the street corner holding a sign and saying the end is near. But it does feel that way, and it's terrifying. But yes, you can come to Orthodoxy because it is more conservative right now. Who knows what the future will hold? But you have to also adhere more rigorously to doctrine than you do in Baptist circles. Words bind in Orthodoxy. Everything you say, you will be held account for.
But I think that I agree with parts of that. I mean, as far like just the last couple of years, like I know exactly what Loretta's saying. How it used to feel like there were like safeguards against pause and placed in churches, and I grew up feeling that way too. But then it's like I see a lot of people just kind of going with the flow and saying, "Oh well, you know, maybe this isn't such a big deal anymore. Maybe we can just accept this and that, and maybe we can just water it down." And like I can definitely relate to that because I kind of have gone through the same thing in my own life. Like I think that the safeguards are just eroding.
Well,
and,
go on.
Oh well, just I was going to say
these people expressed alarm for a reason. You know, I mean, they were
what was that?
popping. These people expressed alarm for a reason. Just why they expressed alarm at Kennedy's candidacy when Kennedy ran for president in, what was it, 62 or 59 or whatever. You know, there was a whole sector of the country that was like, wait a second, this guy is a papist. Is he going to obey the Pope, or is he going to go for, you know, is he going to do what's right for America? And, you know, there was a reasonable alarm, as in people advocating for their own interests. And I mean, I'm still here. I know people are still, you know, people still feel that way. They can make it tough to do it, but people still feel that way. That's how people feel.
The difficult part, I think, what you said earlier about it's tough. It's hard being the one that has to have the backbone. Is that in a way we have to paused in many ways. I mean, I don't really live like a super degenerate life, but I certainly don't live kind of anywhere near the kind of just average day-to-day righteous life that a believer would have lived 30, 40, 50 years ago. So the need, it is daunting, exactly as you said, that we have to. They were responding to.
Yeah, but when you have kids, it's less daunting. When you have kids, it's like you're like tied by the neck to this world, whether you want to be or not. So, you know, when somebody's pushing degeneracy or something sick or something nasty or something threatening, then you're going to react because you're worried about your kids. And that's a problem with people having less children. I mean, everybody's like, oh, we need bodies, we need numbers, we need people to have more children. We need more parents. We need more people who are parents and care, and not only care, but you don't have a choice. You're there. You're the love of everything that, you know, embodied in God is right here in physical, material form in front of you. And you, I mean, would you throw yourself in front of a truck without even thinking? Both me and my husband, without even thinking. And all you guys, whether you have kids or whether you don't, you would be like that if you had kids. And I mean,
I have 4.
The low, oh, wonderful! I'm so happy. But the low birth rate, it's like everybody's like, oh, we need more people, whatever. We need more people to be parents and to understand how scary it is, and to galvanize, and to activate, and to you know, get into this real world and like do something. In my
go on.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Maybe even try to segue us back into our topic of love from there. That I have numbers of friends that are, you know, my age, 50 or whatever, and have never had children, and the way they perceive the world is as, you know, predatory men in their 20s. You know, when they see young women, all they see is, oh God, you know, I wish I was still young enough, or they act in some ways as if they, you know, they want to score, you know, whereas I see a lovely young woman. I mean, obviously sometimes you lust, it's not, you know, we're human, but the difference is profound, because as a parent of daughters, I've learned to love. I've learned to love young women in a very different way than these people. They just simply have had the opportunity to understand the fullness of community and the ages of people. And I have young women respond to me differently. They and for these guys, if a young woman sits next to them or touches them, or, you know, they see it as some kind of advance, and it's like, no, they likely have maybe terrible relationships with their fathers. They're looking for security, or they don't, or maybe whatever, their relationship, they're not seeking you for sex. They are seeking you because there's something kind of deeper and more profound about a kind of community relationship. And you should, by this point of your life, be mature enough and integrated enough into the culture to realize your place as a parent, even if you didn't have kids. I mean, in a healthier society, that would take place.
There is this alarming feeling that we're suddenly in competition. We're suddenly against each other. My friends who are a couple, I just said to one of my friends, "Where's your woman?" And she heard me, and she gave me this whole feminist shtick that stop calling me his woman, I don't belong to him, or something. What I'm sorry, Miss Loretta, but this is mostly coming from your side. The Marxists got to you, and they keep trying to pit you against us. Keep trying to make you more proud than you should be. I mean, knowing that you have to submit your husband was a universal human part. It was nature. And I don't mean submission as in an Islamic way, but to belong to someone. I would proudly call myself someone's man. And I would say I belong to her. I don't see why that's the meaning. What's so great? And another thing, what's so great about being an individual? I mean, individuals are kind of sucky. Individuals can't change the world. Groups do. Unities do. The Romans weren't individuals.
Wow, you really are Eastern European.
Why? Collectivism, comrade. No, I'm very much pro small-scale democracy. I think that a small town should elect its mayor. I think that a county should decide its own budget, its own laws. So much more of a federal system, a monarchical federal system. But you can't escape the fact that we're collective beings. It was a nice idea. It feels nice in the moment to be an individual, but this Anglo-Saxon idea of the supremacy of the individual is false. The individual is nothing. People don't even learn to speak if you isolate them. You degenerate into a beast the more you go close to individualism. The more individualistic you are, the more likely you are to be hedonistic, the more likely you are to be selfish. Everything that's worse in human nature comes out in this extreme. And I'm not saying collectivism doesn't bring out something worse, because humans are corruptible, collectivism generates power for a small number of people, and so on. But you can have checks and balances on collectivism. You can never have checks and balances on individualism in a quote-unquote free society. My freedom, man, to kill yourself, to melt your body in fat and grease and estrogen, to degrade the holy union that is between man and woman. Everything is a bastardization of what is sacred and holy. And people wonder why, and I'm not talking about the people, but most of the planet calls America the Great Satan. And for good reason. You guys spread this crap around. And I love Americans, especially the South.
It's not us. It's our leaders. It's not us. It's not us people. It's not our people. It's our leaders.
Well,
it's not.
Yes.
You know,
like,
arguments can be made that Massachusetts needs to be.
It's not us. Like
I agree.
Ceausescu representing you, based Romanian.
Excuse me?
Ceausescu. Was he representing you? I mean, you know, you get bad leaders. We have bad leadership. We are ruined.
Well, you chose yours. The Soviets raped us to death until we said yes to communism.
I think democracy is kind of a self-choice most of the time. I mean, like, I see people on, like, I get in these arguments with people on Twitter saying, like, oh, we don't want these, you know, Muslims coming to our country. Like, well, you shouldn't have invaded them then. It's like, well, I didn't make them do that. I wasn't behind that. Why should I suffer for what some neocon leader did? It's like, I mean, you say, yeah, you elected them, but like democracy only really gives you a small set of choices. And so
yes, but almost every American I met, except you guys, of course, worships this idea of freedom. Nobody's making you worship.
What Americans are you meeting? Where are you meeting these Americans? Who are they? What Americans are?
Well, mostly in our church.
Rich Americans.
Go on. Sorry.
I mean, are they
Americans in your church?
I'm just.
Well, it's missionaries come all the time to Romania.
That's. Oh. I don't want to hear stereotypes about Americans, because you know we're quasi under occupation, like basically all of Europe is, and like basically all of the West is. Not as bad as England, but you know people are losing their jobs and people are being hounded out. So it's not us, it's our leaders. It's not the American people.
Well,
yeah. I mean, about the whole thing with freedom.
Well, the American people are taught that they don't exist. The American people are taught that everything that makes them special is a crappy piece of paper written in 1978 or something like that.
1376.
More freedom, more democracy, more liberalism. This is not only American leaders. I mean, except people on the alt-right, Americans are really proud that their country is the home of the free and the land of the brave or something. And freedom in the past meant that you had self-determination. You as a country or as a people could choose your own destiny in life. An orthodox country could stay orthodox. It could keep its borders, have its own trade. This is what freedom meant in the past. You wouldn't even think that freedom means dragon dildos. Seriously, it's such
all right, Gregory.
It's not a curse.
Gregory.
It's not a curse.
I know. I was saying.
I have.
Calm down. Yeah, I know what you're saying. You have something to say, Bill?
Yeah, I just have a really great quote that is related to this by Thomas Carlyle that I love breaking out all the time. Carlyle says, liberty, the true liberty of a man, you would say, consisted in his finding out or being forced to find out the right path and to walk thereon, to learn or to be taught what work he actually was able for, and then by permission, persuasion, or even compulsion to set about doing of the same. That is his true blessedness, honor, liberty, and maximum of well-being. If liberty be not that, I, for one, have small care about liberty. So I think that that's the non-Dragon Dildos way of saying what Gregory's saying.
Well, Dragon Dildos made it funnier.
Okay, well, let's not talk about sex toys here.
Yeah, no more of that.
Wait,
Like,
those are
anyway.
sex toys?
That's what I thought it was. But
Well,
maybe I'm wrong. I don't use that kind of stuff. But anyway,
well, I hope you don't.
Moving on, back to love.
Christian. Anyway, yeah, but
Enough about dildos. Back to love.
Yeah.
Go on.
But about the thing with America and freedom, I do think you kind of get it though. It's just sort of something that it's like a buzzword. The whole thing with freedom, that like, well, America is land of the free, home of the brave. Like you said, is just kind of a cultural slogan that we don't really. And it's not like, I mean, you got it. It's like it's just sort of a bastardized form of freedom, but it's like it's just kind of like through cultural inertia. It's kind of people still say these things, but
And I'm not.
like
I'm
many
not.
people are coming to realize that freedom by itself is not like an end. Freedom is a byproduct.
Well, I'm not. Listen, I'm not anti-American, dude. I speak your language. I know your pop culture by heart. I know more of your counties than Romania's counties. So I'm not anti-American. Why do people take constructive criticism as something?
I don't, Gregory. I'm just making you bend the knee.
Well, I'm already bending the knee.
It's an American discussion with Americans, so I want to hear that you love America. I want to.
My country is an American colony. We can't paint our house without asking you guys.
We're all American colonies, Gregory, and I want to say that I in fact,
and, Russia.
yeah, I in fact am anti-American. You guys have tried to invade us about a dozen times now, and I'm sick of it.
Are you Mexican
Gregor,
or Canadian?
Canadian.
Whoa.
Gregor, have you ever seen Home Improvement?
What?
Have you seen the show Home Improvement?
No.
Okay, so you don't know our pop culture that well.
Oh.
Burn.
You're discussing.
Well, whoa, no. God, what am I going to do? And the thing about
you can find it on YouTube or
stereotypes.
something.
So, my people, the Romanian people, have some negative stereotypes associated with them, and I accept them. I always argue with other Romanians when someone says, "Oh, the media in the West is misrepresenting us." No, they're right. We have an enormous gypsy population, and they move to the West, and they live in slums, and they cause trouble. And as long as we're not willing to retire their Romanian citizenship status, we own them, and it's our fault. And it's I think that people should judge Romanians, and I think people should close their borders to Romanians if that means letting in all the gypsy problems. I honestly believe this. And,
yeah, but are gypsies Romanian? I thought they weren't Romanian.
well, they're not, but they're Romanian citizens, so we own them for the moment.
I see.
And they've been here. It's not. They're older than your blacks. I mean, they ran. Romanian slavery laws were very good. Were very lax. So slaves used to run away from the Byzantine Empire or Russia and come here. So that's why we have such an enormous gypsy population. The church usually, in the oldest historical chronicles, we used to see them as thralls of the monasteries or something like that referred to. And that's why we have a large gypsy population. But as long as we don't deal with this problem, I do think that the negative stereotypes should apply to Romanians.
I have
Because-
zero negative stereotypes about Romanians. I've read a couple books by Romanian monks that were Orthodox monks. I mean, I know that the Romanians were really oppressed during Ceausescu.
Well, Romanians are hated in Europe because of this, and we used
Because
to
of
have
the gypsies?
because of the gypsies. Yeah,
Oh, interesting.
they honestly they're Muslims, but not as smart, so they don't cause as much mass violence. But they do deal in human trafficking. You can watch documentaries where they
I don't like
simply
gypsies. Yeah.
simply live in landfills, in places where people throw their garbage. They set up their tents and they steal, and
Yeah.
they steal kids from Romania, and they can. This is a true fact. Many kids get snatched up outside of their homes, and they get taken to foreign countries to prostitute themselves, and it's horrible. But they're not as dangerous because they're much less organized, and there's no weapons. We don't have firearm crime here, so even when you see some gang violence, you usually see it. They have a strange affinity for samurai swords. They honestly they fight with katanas. It's the funniest thing when you're watching it on TV. But there are problems with our gypsies. And there is a problem in the Romanian heart with corruption. I mean, for every one leader that brought us out from the Dark Ages, we have 20 that sold us out.
Mm.
One of the famous scenes from Vlad Impaler's life is when he came to power, he asked the noblemen, how many princes of Wallachia did you live under? And most of them couldn't even remember. There were that many. He had to fight not only the Turks, but his own people, because they were dying to sell out their country. And that's the whole Romanian history, from the start to the present. So I empathize with you when you say you have corrupt leaders.
You know what, though? That seems like everybody's history except the English. You know, the English were the only people who had it together, and we had the tradition of the English, and we were descended from the English, and we had a good thing going, and now it's all getting destroyed. I mean, I'm not English, I'm Irish. My ancestors are from Ireland. Ireland is probably just as corrupt as Romania, you know? But the
But with more redheads.
with more, yeah, you guys don't have redheads?
Well, they're rare.
Oh, redheads are kind of odd. You find them in odd places, but yeah. I mean, I see England as the exception, and we were the exception, and now we're falling apart. But you know, the whole world. I mean, Ann Coulter has said that the whole world is like this. The whole world is corrupt. You know,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but we were especially corrupt. I don't know how to tell you this. We never really had an upstream. Our biggest accomplishment, and it is a massive one, because people to the left and right of us were getting destroyed and assimilated, is that we stopped playing. My dogs are playing. Was that we survived. Every empire in history passed through here. From the Romans to the Aztecs to the Mongols to the Tatars to the Turks. Everyone. Aztecs, sorry, I'm watching my dogs with the corner of my eye, and I'm not, I'm with half a brain speaking. So, the Tatars, the Mongols, the Austro-Hungarians, we were always a province. And in this adversity, and not fake leftist adversity, our own culture developed in this oppression. And it was oppression to the sense that the Hungarians wouldn't let Romanian children attend schools or something. Or we couldn't set or the Turks asked for our sons. A lot of families had to give up their children and then see them 20 years later coming back to kill them. So wow. It was hard. It was hard, very hard. And our culture... Go on.
I was going to say, William, do you have to step out now?
Sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, sorry, I had it on mute. Yeah, I should go make dinner for the fam. So.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, Williams. Good to talk to you again. I'm glad to see you're still going to keep joining us.
Oh, for sure.
Goodbye,
Nice seeing
sir.
you.
Hope you're feeling better after. Well, you're having back problems or something.
No, I had a hernia surgery. I was
Oh,
down
hernia.
For,
Ooh.
down for
Yeah.
no work for 4 weeks, and
Wait, you guys have surgery?
What?
It's called
Yes,
not living the
surgery
second world
exists as a
country.
concept in North America.
I did have to wash myself in the evening and the morning with the surgical sponge as a prep. This is
We're all just
Canada's
Uber
new
mentioned
policy.
in North America.
Anyway, good night, friends.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Right?
Have a good supper.
God bless.
All right. So, is he still here? Oh. Okay. I wasn't sure. Get out of here, William.
My point to Miss Loretta was that I don't lack the capacity for self-criticism when it comes to my own people. And I'm not harping on Americans because I hate them. But right now, if I try to redefine my constitution and make marriage between a man and a woman, you better know that some American money will flow into my country and stop me or campaign against my priests or something like that. So it is a fact of the world right now.
Yeah. What's that noise? Is that your dog again?
Yeah, it's playing with a chew toy.
Okay.
And no,
Yeah,
they're not my babies.
They're just your pals, huh?
They're my companions.
Yeah.
If as long as you're realistic, I mean, it's the same with everything. If you love your car too much, you're a weirdo. If you love your dogs too much, you're a weirdo. You can love and respect another being. It's not cuckery or weak. You don't have to fetishize not liking non-humans.
Yeah.
And there are innocent. Go on. Sorry.
I was gonna say, what do you think, from a Romanian perspective, the proper? You talked about the gypsies earlier. Like, do you think that gypsies, like, what's the proper loving attitude toward them? To bring it back to our original topic.
The proper loving attitude, leave them alone, but stricter policing, because I don't want to see their culture destroyed. It may be primitive by modern standards because they do have child marriages, some of them drop out of school, others live in slums, and they have some local baron or king, usually called the Bulibasha, I think it's in their own language, that gathers all the money. So you have this phenomenon of gypsies living in huts and having a king who lives in palaces or something like that. But their culture is their own, and God made an order to this world, so I don't want to see them destroyed in any way. But I do want to raise awareness about the crimes they commit and how they should be more strictly policed and enforced. Because I once got a fine for building a ramp to aid an elderly woman in my apartment block, and I got a fine for building without an authorization. But gypsies can build palaces without authorization and without taxes, without paying taxes or something. So there is this thing about if you go against the gypsies, you're racist. And it happened. They went to the West, to the Western Europe, and in a country they were offered arable land and seeds to grow crops, to not live in slums anymore, and they said no. So there is this unwillingness to work and to integrate. Well, I don't want them to integrate because I want them to keep their culture. I genuinely, and in the sense, I don't love it as if I want it for myself, but I love it enough because I know this culture belongs to humans, And just as my culture means a lot to me, it must mean a lot to them. So I would like to see the division lines between my people and theirs increase, and live separate but respectful and loving lives. That's my point. Interbreeding doesn't solve anything, because if you're a Romanian, well, it's basically assuring that your kids will have an extremely low IQ. And if you're a gypsy, well, the kid will live in two worlds. He won't be truly a gypsy, and he won't be truly a Romanian. It's not, mixed race children have nothing to identify with. It's a pain.
What is their religion? Do they have a specific religion, or is
I was
it?
wondering that too.
Well, they have sort of a bastardized Christianity, and they even have a founding myth. It's said that when Jesus was on the cross, the last nail that was supposed to be driven in his heart was made from gold, so a gypsy stole it. And honestly, and
Wow.
from then on, gypsies are the only people on earth who are allowed to steal.
Oh, wow.
And well,
I mean, I know stealing is a big part of their culture. Like, it's not just something they do because it's like something that they actually identify with. Like, thievery is like something they take pride in.
well, yeah, they have a specific type of music. They sort of took Turkish music and sort of took elements from Romanian traditional music and made some sort of conglomeration called manele. And it's in its lyrical form, it's kind of like American rap, because it's not grammatical. So if you spoke like a rapper, you would make a fool of yourself, at least in the past. And that's their music. It promotes stealing, being a gangster, just like the comment. It's almost identical to your rap, but it's not in rhymes. They actually have to sing it. And that music is a problem because many Romanians listen to it. I despise
Thug life.
Yeah. They honestly, to call someone a mafioso is a compliment. So in their culture, or to come, it's very, I don't know. It's people with low agency. So people with low agency value short-term gratification. And what's more short-term than stealing? You get a massive amount of wealth on a short period of time. That's why all low agency people in the world like rap, or in this case, this variation of gypsy music.
What's the name of it?
Manele. M-A-N-E-L-E.
I gotta see what this sounds like.
Oh God, I'm dying of embarrassment. Why did I do this to my own country? You'll nuke us off the map if you hear that.
No, I'm just interested in hearing what this even sounds like, because
It's a blend between.
I'm not gonna listen to it. I'm not gonna buy it, I'm sure, because I'm not into sung rap. But
you know what? I actually, Thomas Sowell, I think, writes a book, Black Rednecks, White Niggers, or something like that.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he would have said that, but
it's white liberals.
White liberals.
It's a great book. I'll give you that. It's a great book.
But it underlines the influence of Scotch-Irish culture in Southern culture. And Southern culture further influenced Black culture. And this thing about rap being for degenerates, Mr. Delta USA mentioned it in the comments. Yes and no. Modern rap, yes, but degenerates don't have a monopoly on rhyming. So you can have a rap about anything you want. It's just speaking in rhymes on a beat. It's a completely neutral tool.
There's the Gilbert and Sullivan patter songs. I'm the very
Those are
model
awesome.
Yeah,
I am the very model of a modern magic general.
You got it. Yeah.
But if
that's
you
considered as summer.
if you hear
Pretty cool.
Irish pop songs, I listen to Seamus Kennedy. I don't know if you guys heard of them, but Irish folk songs or pub songs are very hard. You need lyrical dexterity to sing them. Seriously, it's very hard. It's word games and rhyme structures, and this is a thread in Irish culture.
Is that right, Loretta? You're the Irish person
Oh,
here.
sorry, because I've been like an obvious Irish American. Wait, are they complicated? I don't know about that. I don't know that they're complicated, but yeah, there's a definite
Well, not Danny Boy.
Cultural, there's a song. I actually saw this really cool Romanian group that did a version of some Irish song in Irish. I think it was in Irish that they did a rendition of it. So interesting.
Like Irish Gaelic?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's kind of like fringes of Europe. I mean, von Kuhnert-Leddihn he kind of stereotypes the fringes of Europe as being kind of more extreme, and then the middle of Europe as being more bourgeois and not liking extremes and kind of what we think of as bourgeois. And it's kind of interesting because then if you look at the Romanians, they're fringe of Europe. You look at the Irish, they're fringe of Europe. Scandinavia, Greece, all that. And then if you look at like the center, like Germany, which, I mean, Germany isn't really a country in some ways. It's just an amalgamation, a modern amalgamation of taking all these Middle Europeans and just like piling them together in a kind of like, barcode state that strips their identity of them. And I mean, what we've seen the entire 20th century, now the 21st century, is what we're seeing from that happening, which is people losing their identity and then going crazy as a result, both through the Nazis, and then we see today what they're doing, which is like the kind of going in the opposite direction, just stupid. But anyway, as far as Irish music, yeah, I guess it's complicated. I mean, Ireland has a really distinct culture that's been very isolated and very, it's happened over generations. And Ireland was one of the only countries in the modern era. It kind of skipped the Enlightenment. Ireland kind of skipped the Enlightenment and just emerged in the modern era as a pre-Enlightenment country, and was really oppressed, was really poor, was really not doing well, and I think Ireland will do okay in the future because all those systems are there. Like, I mean, if refugees are going to come in and rape local girls, well, all those systems are there to fight back against that. So I think.
Well, Ireland today they have like a gay Indian as their prime minister now. So I mean, I've heard that.
I know.
Ireland today is only like 75% ethnic Irish, and they're a pretty small country too. So, I mean, Ireland got paused in the last 30 years.
Well, they have an underdog fetish.
I lived there I left there in 2001. So, I mean, I lived there for a year and a half from 2000 to 2001. And I mean, it wasn't paused when I was there. I mean, there was a big Chinese community starting in Dublin, and you could definitely see like a Chinatown starting. There weren't any African immigrants, and they have a giant white, poor subculture that's like right on scene themselves, and who's really rough, very rough. And I wonder what's going to happen. I would think people would revert back to IRA. Is what I think will happen, and that they'll revert. It's a couple generations behind them,
It's better to have African immigrants than other Europeans because I'm not particularly adverse to Africans or Indians or anyone. I just want Romania to stay Romanian. I don't care who I get replaced with. I don't want to get replaced. So it would be worse if people from Europe were flooding into Ireland because they would fit in better. and they would change your country, and there would be no backlash because Europeans are more non-distinct. They don't stick out like sore nails.
Yeah, I know there are a lot of Polish immigrants in Ireland.
But like you can see in there was a while when the Dutch moved to England, and it did just fit in and integrate and are now basically indistinguishable from the English. So I think that you're right that you don't want like someone who is completely different from you population wise to come in there, but is able to adapt culturally so that there's no backlash. But if they are reasonably close to you in terms of their genealogy, like the Northern Germans or the Dutch for England, then I don't think that presents much of an issue if it's in a small enough scale.
Yeah, it doesn't, but we're talking in the modern world, it's only replacement level.
Yeah.
Few countries have moderate amounts of immigration. It's either no one wants to come to your country, like in the case of my country, because it's poor and it doesn't have gives me that, or you get flooded out of existence.
Yeah.
And it's a problem.
Yeah, what you were saying before, Loretta, about Ireland being somewhere that just kind of skipped the Enlightenment, Quebec was the same way, and I think that it has something to do with being a population that was white but controlled by the English that causes that, because up until like the 1950s-ish, Quebec was almost exactly the same way. They were living essentially the same life around the start of World War II as they had been since like the American Civil War or even 1776. And they got modernized very, very quickly. That there was I'm sorry that this is off topic, but it's really interesting to me that there was in the early 1950s, someone put out a report saying, okay, here are the backbones of Quebec society. And it's their language, their general. They listed off a bunch of things about their culture, the Roman Catholic Church, the fact that their education comes from the Roman Catholic Church. That they listed off like 20 to 25 things that were the backbone of Quebec culture, and the what's called the Silent Revolution or the Quiet Revolution, sorry, was these leftists getting into power in Quebec and saying, okay, we have to get rid of all of that, every single bit of that. And then afterwards, we've had all of this backlash about language, and that's because language was the only thing that they didn't get rid of. So it's like the last, you know how Quebec people, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Quebec people are obsessed. They speak French, and they are obsessed with keeping their language rights. And any human rights discussion that goes on in Quebec is almost certainly about the French language. And the reason why that is because everything else was taken away from them. That is their last thing that is distinctly theirs and that they have all of. Everything else was paused or castrated or whatever. And that's the one thing that they have left.
When I was a kid, I'm from upstate New York, about probably 4 hours from Quebec. And when I was a kid, we used to go to Montreal to drink in high school and in college. And Montreal is a beautiful, beautiful city. Such a beautiful city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's wonderful. And the thing about Quebec is the architecture stayed nice longer than other places. Like it has the
like
really
a European city. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it very much is, and that I think goes into what I was saying about them having skipped the Enlightenment, skipped right into the modern era, was that they did the same thing with architecture. That they have the really, really old stuff, and then they have the brand new stuff, and there's like a line somewhere in the 50s and 60s where it stopped being the really old stuff and started being the new stuff. There isn't that transition that everywhere else has, where you have the 20s buildings versus the 1880s buildings and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
If you ever get a chance, though, go to Quebec City because I did
okay, go to Quebec City once. It's very far. It's really very far. It took, I think it was 8 hours to get there. That Quebec City is like, it's like phenomenal. It's like a different world. It's like a castle. It's like a walled city. like in the middle of
it's amazing.
very, very, very different. Very, very different. Very, very. I don't want to say very unique because my mom would kill me and say that doesn't make any sense. But it's so one of the coolest places I've been. In the not in the middle of nowhere, but like a real fortress. You really felt like it was a fortress.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the, I think it's the only walled city in North America or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. It was a bit like Mont Saint Michel in France, but it was more Marshall feeling. Like you could see like the layout, and it seemed more practical. And it was very far north. It's really far north. I'm from about 2 hours from the Canadian border, and it seemed very far north to me. It's not, it's.
Oh yeah, because they were coming right in from the Atlantic and like the St. Lawrence and that. So that it's pretty.
Where
north.
are you from? Are you from Quebec City?
No, I'm from Ontario. I live in on a houseboat on James Bay, actually.
Oh, how cool! Wow, that is cool.
Yeah, so I'm even further north.
Oh, I'm a northern person myself, but upstate New York is gone. Where I'm from is gone, and I don't mind the weather. I really liked it, in fact, but it's gone.
Just like the Nordiques. Sorry, had to.
No, I understand. I was always a Leafs fan, so I don't care that the Nordiques are gone.
After they became the Avalanche, then they started winning Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
Those fleur-de-lis logos are pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, what were we talking about before I so rudely interrupted with
we were talking about music.
We're talking about gypsy gangster rap, or
gypsy gangster rap. Yeah.
Sorry if we're boring you, Gregory. He's probably getting ready for work, isn't he? Actually, is Gregory?
He's muted. I don't know if he's still here or not.
I don't know if he's a. I don't. He said he had to go to work in about an hour a while ago, so I don't know if he's had to leave or what. But I'm happy to talk to him. Yeah, it's actually interesting hearing about Canada. Bill, you know a lot about the history and stuff. I only know so much about Canadian history.
No one does. It's kind of this black hole of knowledge because we're in your guys' shadow. But there's so much that we had it seems minor when you get told it, but then you look at the repercussions of it. That was what my whole Blame Canada series was about. That for example, my biggest example is the kind of multiculturalism that is currently infecting Europe is Canadian multiculturalism. It isn't American multiculturalism. They are two completely different things. But it is the Canadian strain of that particular virus that England and Germany and all of these places that go on about how multicultural and wonderful they are saying that they are embracing Canadian multiculturalism. We started it because we had the English and the French and the Indians, and we all kind of had to survive together. So we had to say, okay, you go do your Catholic thing. I'm going to do my Protestant thing, and he's going to do his native thing. From there, in around the 60s, they just turned it into anyone's culture. That it wasn't just those three groups, that it was every group. And from because of that kind of spread to the rest of the world. So yeah, we have an interesting history, and we've had a large, oversized impact for how much people know about us. You there, Ian?
Yeah, sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
Okay. It looks like we lost Loretta. Hope she didn't skip out on us because she was getting mad at us. I don't think she was. I remember she had problems last time she was on with the connection. But
I posted the gypsy song in the chat.
I got that. I pulled it up here. I'll listen to this one after the hangout's over.
Yeah.
But I remember one time I did kind of try to learn a bit about Canada, just like the different towns and provinces and stuff. And I remember when I was in Korea, I met this guy and he's like, and and he said, like, I'm from St. John. I said, oh, is that in New Brunswick? And he's like, wow, an American who actually knows something about Canada. So,
And you even got the plural right, or the possessive right, because St. John's with an S is in Newfoundland, but St. John is in New Brunswick. You got it.
oh, I might have been lucky on my part.
God, I would love Canada, especially the weather. I love cold weather.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful when it's nice and cold up here.
Oh God, I hate the heat. I'm not built for heat. I just don't like how my body feels when it's hot. I never wash myself with hot water. I always take cold showers. I don't like heat. I don't know. I'm a nice person.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're an ice person at heart.
Yeah.
Even though Romanians are sun people.
I grew up in a mountain valley, so it was nice and cool and lush forests, and so it was very nice. And I would love Canada. I know I would, because I love gloomy weather. When it's raining, all of my colleagues and friends are depressed and sad, and I'm cheerful and happy. I know I like bad weather. It's more, I don't know, it pulls out. Nothing makes you appreciate your home more than bad weather outside. I love being in a warm house when it's freezing outside. I love watching the rain through my window. It is a triumph over nature, and I indulge in it.
I just speaking to that, I do know there's a guy that moved here or near here, not where I am because I'm way out in the boonies, but a local city. He's from, I don't remember if it was Romania or one of the neighboring countries, and I'm sorry about that, but he's from one of those countries, and he moved here like 6 or 7 years ago, and he just walks around without. I'm sorry. He walks around here.
Name in vain like that for.
No, sorry.
Yeah, no more of that, Gregory.
Yeah.
But he walks around here without a shirt on all the time, all year round, just no shirt, because he loves the weather so much. It's for him, it's swelteringly hot even on a cool day.
Well,
so,
continental
I think you love it.
Continental weather. We're not like Russian or anything. Continental weather is extreme. So the summers are extremely hot and the winters are extremely cold. So we have a moderate continental climate. It's not like we're this Russian stereotype of living in the taiga or the tundra and wrestling bears or something. It's just me. Most Romanians love the summer and sunbathing and something. But no, that's just me. It's not a cultural specificity. So it may be just a coincidence that I have something in common with your neighbor.
All right. Well, just thought I'd point it out.
Germany Germany's colder. Germany's gloomier and colder than Romania. My parents are in Germany, and I always talk to them, and I'm dying of heat, and they're always cold, and it's raining a lot. Excuse me?
Is Gregory reading a chapter for your audiobook?
No, I ran out of chapters. I haven't talked to Gregory because he's not on Twitter.
And I don't have mics of good enough quality to read. I would love to do it, but I don't have the audio equipment.
I had to use an iPad to record my chapter.
And why would you want my thick accent on your book?
Well, I do have an Icelandic accent on the book, which is going to be awesome.
How does that sound?
You seen the TV show Vikings?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like Bjorn.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
God, I used to love Vikings. I used to love Norse culture, but now the alt-right ruined it for me because it always puts it in opposition to Christianity.
Yeah, that's dumb.
And its latest season is very stupid because they actually went to Spain
Oh, that was the weirdest thing. What the hell? What was going on there?
The Viking that was most devout, the Viking that hated other cultures and religions, when he saw Muslims, he had to protect them.
Yeah, that was just weird. Now,
Hey, Loretta's back.
did you
Good to have you back. So, is her computer went dead? I guess she's muted.
Hi, thank you. I was on the porch and my computer went dead. What you guys are talking about? The Vikings in Spain?
It's a TV show, Vikings.
The show Vikings.
Oh, we love that show.
I guess I'm the only one here who's never seen it. But it's okay.
Did you catch the Spain episode?
What?
Did you catch the Spain episode?
My husband saw it. I don't think I saw it. Did they go to a mosque or something?
Yeah. Floki started. Floki, the guy who murders everyone who's not a Viking or an Odinist, he had to protect Muslims. He broke down, and they adopted a Muslim kid.
Yeah, my husband wasn't crazy about the episode. It sounded stupid. I didn't see it, but he was.
Well, your husband must be a smart man.
He's very smart.
Yeah, so this is when the Muslims were in control of Spain.
Yeah.
Well, there is this what do we do with Spanish people, because they're part Muslim?
What?
Well, they're Catholic today.
That's like the least of my concerns.
Well, I'm glad you have some common sense, because there are threads as long as books on which person is a European or not.
Well, I'm kind of like a marginal European myself. I mean, I'm Irish and you're Romanian. So, I mean, I think we're all kind of European. I think Christian is one, there's Christendom. I think Christendom is a big signifier as to whether you're European or not.
Europe used to mean North Africa.
I'm sorry?
Europe used to mean North Africa. Europe was everything that the Romans owned. The Middle East was considered European. But you can't.
I've heard that some of the North Africans back in the old days were whiter than they are now.
Well, yeah, because Roman emperors were from Africa.
Yeah,
but North
Africans now are kind of Mediterranean, right? I mean, they're not. Sub-Saharan African is where you get Black African people from, but North Africans are kind of, are they, if you look at Egyptians, if you look at Sicilians or Greeks, it's, I think of Mediterranean as their own people.
Yeah, Coptic Christians often look like they're from the southern parts of Italy or Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even Armenians. There are some fair-skinned Armenians out there.
Yeah, there's a big variation, I think, with Italians or Greeks or anybody in the Mediterranean is such a mix of people that it's hard to generalize, and you get all over the place because there's been so much commerce.
When people say Mediterranean, they usually mean the Mediterranean parts of Europe. They don't mean Semites, for example, because there are a lot of Semites.
Right.
Semites aren't Mediterranean. No, they mean white people with olive skin. So you're the darkest type of white person. That's what they mean. Or even many Greeks.
Like Lebanese, all over.
Google Greek girl, turn on your adult filter, and Google Greek Greek girl, and you'll see that few of them are bleach white.
Yeah,
right.
That's something that Nicholas Taleb, I don't know if you guys pay any attention to what he says on a day-to-day basis, but it's one of his obsessions is that the Mediterranean, that whole area, including North Africa, and Egypt, and like Galilee and all that were much whiter back in the day than they are now. That there have been a number of invasions since then of darker skinned people that have caused
Turks.
the Turks and from sub-Saharan Africa, like the Nubians or whatever, that have caused the genetics to drift away from the rest of Europe a bit, but that they used to be.
It didn't drastically lower their IQ or their impulse control, so what's the problem? I thought we didn't hate color.
Yeah.
We just...
Yeah, they did. Like, look at Greek IQ now versus what Greek IQ was compared to the rest of Europe in like 200 BC. Like, think about that. Greeks are not.
That's so speculative.
It's 92. No.
Right,
That's
92
so
versus the Germans.
It's like, how can you even discuss that?
Yeah, but you don't know that. Wait, they measure IQ by country. So,
right.
For example, Romanians, I suspect, are somewhere close to other Latin people. But the problem is we have gypsies, and gypsies have an average of 60. So of course
I know
the
that,
national average will drop.
Yeah, I'm not comparing Romanians, but like
No, I
Greeks
gave you
don't
an
have that
example.
subpopulation. No, I know, but Greeks don't have like those subpopulations that have the drastically lower IQ. They're reasonably homogenous for a European country.
Really?
Yeah. Aren't they? Am I missing a subpopulation there? That's completely different.
I thought that they had lots of immigrants in Greece.
Well, they
and
have
lots of
migrants
Turks.
They have a
But
fair
are those
amount of
people
immigrants,
citizens,
but
though?
no more than Germany. And their average IQ is around 10 points lower than Germany, versus in 200 BC, when I would bet you that their average IQ would have been way higher than the German.
That's so speculative. It drives me insane.
Yeah,
I can't deal with that. Like, the average IQ, number one, IQ is total bullshit. It's a standardized test. I know. I mean, I'm saying that I probably have a fairly high IQ. I'm a lawyer. I went to Cornell. I went to Fordham. You know, I passed the New York bar. I mean, my IQ is probably decent, but I mean, I measure IQ is just, to me, and I know there's so many people on Twitter are obsessed with IQ, and I'm like, IQ? What? I mean, we all know people with the highest of IQ that have gone nowhere. People with, like, you know, IQ that maybe if they took an IQ test, it wouldn't be the most stellar, but they've accomplished an awful lot in their lives. And I know if you're going to be a NASA scientist, then you have to have an IQ, a high IQ and all that. But it's so speculative to say what was the IQ of ancient Greece. I mean, there were probably people with very low IQs in ancient Greece.
I
get that.
My
but what I'm
problem
talking
is how can you tell their skin color, the skin color of ancient Greeks?
Oh, that's easy. Genetics can totally do that. Seriously, look up. Taleb does a rant about this like once a week on Twitter, about talking about the genetic makeup of sample Greeks from way back in the day, or sample Levantines from way back.
I mean, so what are the implications of that? What are the implications? That just seems like a dead end to me. You know, I mean, so what are we supposed to get from that?
Where were we going with that? I did have a point.
If this Taleb guy is right, then it further validates the theory that mixing with other races lowers your capacity for intelligence.
That was where we were going with that. That's where So the point was that the Greeks used to do a lot. Like, I was just using IQ as a shorthand for being a smart and successful people. With they had philosophers, and they had architecture, and they had new ways of warfare, and all of these things. They were innovative, and they were doing things, and the Germanic people weren't. And from there up until now, the Germanic people have become these people that are innovative and are doing interesting, intelligent things, and the Greeks have fallen behind. And
well,
Germanic
what are Germanics doing? I mean, if you count Anglos as Germanic, sure, because America is the place of innovation in the world. But Germanics aren't really. I mean, they're too conformists to innovate.
I don't mean the last like 20 years. I'm talking about the last like 200 years. So
Well,
most inventions came from, in the last 200 years, came from north of Italy, you know, like from Germany, from England, from Scotland, from these semi-Germanic people that used to be the joke of the Mediterranean, and now the Mediterranean is...
There's also, I hate to do this because I hate liberals, but there's also social political causes. There's a reason. Sargon of Akkad had this line, and I hate that guy, but he's right. There's a reason why there's not a Tibetan navy. There's a reason why certain people excel in science and others don't. You can't just attribute accomplishment to high IQs, because there are high IQ people who are enslaved. For example, China. China doesn't really innovate, and they're smarter than us. Their politics don't allow for it. Or how can Romanians compete if they're not allowed to go to school by their overlords? Or how can... I don't know. This just doesn't make sense to me. Germany was... well, it was almost depopulated in the 30 Years' War, but it was as a country safer than Italy or Greece, which the Ottoman Empire only went down last century. And even being its neighbor would destabilize you in certain ways. And I don't know, I think that Greeks are still the people that they were. Maybe not in skin color, but I just think they were too hindered. This genetic determinism is a bit dangerous because you remove agency from individuals. And
no, you don't remove agency from moral choices, just ability to succeed in things that are mentally taxing. That's all. Like someone with an 80 IQ was never going to come up with the general theory of relativity.
Well,
but it doesn't mean that someone with an 80 IQ doesn't know right from wrong. You know,
you can do it. I mean, you need a baseline IQ to have a society. Low IQ races have proven time and time again that they cannot, even when everything is given to them. For example, you have the former colonies where the British built hospitals, roads, schools, legal structures. They can't even maintain. So you need a baseline IQ. But after that, it's off to the races because it's basic probability. A genius can be born in a country of 90 IQ people. And that genius, for example, he could master cold fusion and revolutionize the world. So it's not as important to have a general population with high IQ. In fact, it's worse because they will be harder to control, to wrangle. And you don't need a high IQ for the general population. You need a stable level, a 90.
I think it's ridiculous to refer to IQ like, it just seems like it's this like fetishism of IQ. What is IQ? It's some standardized test that was developed in the 1920s to analyze intelligence. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. It's silly.
To be fair,
talking about it like, oh, these people IQ and, you know, Romanians IQ compared to other, you know, Mediterranean people's IQ. It's ridiculous. It's like if I came up with like it's like if I was talking about SATs, or it's just, to me, it just seems silly. It seems really silly.
Well, yeah, I think that there's a general agreement that like IQ by itself doesn't account for everything, but it is sort of like a quick and dirty thing that can show you trends and have certain predictive.
Yeah, but if you want a quick and dirty, you can look at money. Money is a quick and dirty. Who makes the most money? Who's gotten the most money? That's a quick and dirty that makes more sense to me than IQ, or whatever people say is IQ.
As I said,
yeah, I'm going.
Yeah, it's got to work.
So it's been a pleasure to talk with you, and see you next time, I guess.
Yeah.
See you later,
Gregory.
Gregory.
If I decide to let you on again. Okay. Yeah, have a good one. Thanks for coming.
Sorry, yeah, as I was saying, I just meant IQ as shorthand for general intelligence, general ability to do things, but I think that we're way off track from where we were originally going with this, which was love in our society and dealing with that kind of thing.
How did you do
that? And
Yeah.
I think that actually, you know what? I can tie this back in. So the problem, I think, one of the problems with what you're calling IQ fetishism is that it makes people with high IQs think that they can make rules that are good for them, but aren't good for other people. And the example that William was saying like an hour and a half ago now was polyamory, where if you are an extremely high IQ population or group of people and you have a very low time preference and you're very good at keeping things in check and doing that kind of thing, then you can probably be fine, not great, but fine with polyamory. But if you are a normal person, a normal 100 IQ person, or a normal average Joe blue-collar worker or whatever, then that is going to that's going to ruin your life. You're not going to have that intelligence to fall back on that will let you get through the more degenerative parts of that kind of lifestyle. So I think that that's a way to get us back to what we were talking about, that the kinds of things that the left like, if you're they're the kinds of things that people will be convinced of if they're smart enough. That, I think it was Chesterton that said that if you're smart enough, then you'll be able to convince yourself of anything. And that's the kind of thing that we're seeing from the left these days, is these things that are completely detrimental to society as a whole, but they're fine for this individual person in the short term. And so I think that what we need to focus on is the Christian idea of love, which is it's Catholic, it's universal, it's good for everyone at all times.
I think too the Christian idea of charity, like giving other people a break, is a big deal. You know, just having kind of a spirit of generosity towards people around you, I mean, towards Christians around you, is a big deal. Cutting people slack, I mean, that's kind of what charity is.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into the IQ thing, where it's like, I think seeing people as these atomized individuals competing on standardized exams is what part of what's gotten us into this problem, where, I mean, we all bring something to the table. And I'm not saying that as an SJW or whatever. I'm saying that as someone who's fantastic at standardized tests and has been my whole life. And I know the limit of them. They're limited as to what they offer and what they can do. And you can test yourself into a corner, you know? And I think we need to function as a collective. I mean, that sounds Marxist. I don't mean like I mean more like a tribe or a family or like a large person, where it's like, you know, I get you, you're Canadian. We both want the same things. We want our society. We're talking about the West, right? I think it's a big tent. It's a big tent of people who can get together and be like, we don't want the West to go under. We got tons of people who don't want the West to go under. It's just who's able to talk about it at this point, and Americans are. So, I mean, I think in that big tent, we should have charity and love toward, like, kind of a fraternal, kind of a, you know, collegial love. No?
Yeah. I agree completely.
I mean, it's kind of like what I always come back to, and it's kind of pathetic, but what I always come back to is when I was in high school and you had your group of friends and you had your crowd and people would make fun of each other, and people would fight, and you kind of, it was, there were a lot of ugly parts to it, but it was your crowd, it was your people, and that's how it is. And I mean, Kurt Vonnegut said, high school is the core of the American experience, which is, I mean, he's kind of simplistic. I look at him like now, and I'm like an adult, and he's very simplistic and whatever. But there's a tribal element to it, and I think the tribal thing, it's not bad. I mean, I think that the Northern Europeans are kind of like they're not tribal. They don't. But the tribal thing, it can be good, and it can be comforting. And I mean, that's one thing I like about Orthodoxy. You have the ritual, because we're not just cerebral brains in a jar. We're people. We have food that we like. We have music that we like. We have rituals that we like. We have art that we like. We're people, and we need to get back into it, and we need to be more embracing of each other so that we can go forward and try to save our society, which I think so many people agree is like teetering off the edge.
I agree, and I don't want any of our many Greek listeners to think that I was disparaging Greeks at all. I don't think that there's anything wrong with being Greek. I was just trying to make a point about, or an interesting observation about the genetic drift of a population group. It wasn't any, I wasn't intending any kind of moral claims about it, or that one group of people is better than another, or anything like that. But yeah, I think that you're absolutely right that we need to have this feeling of charity towards those that are near us, and yeah, generally everyone to some degree. And that's how I started when I came on here tonight, was saying that this idea of charity and loving your neighbor is just about the only thing that gets me through the day. Like, I can't think that there are too many people out there that are genuinely evil, that aren't just misguided, that you kind of have to give people to some degree the benefit of the doubt that they are that if they're shown the right way, they will walk the right path, because I don't know how I'd survive without that. No?
Yeah, I think you're more enlightened than I am, because I mean, there's people out there who are, they're just, I mean, whatever. I mean, Solzhenitsyn said, the line between good and evil runs through every human heart, or whatever. But I think some people are just like choosing to be bad. I don't think that they're misguided. I mean, a lot of it is like profit motive and gain, and and power, and what people see that they can get out of things. But I think that we need, I mean, that's one reason why I'm not denominational, is because if you're Christian, I don't care if you're Baptist, I don't care if you're Catholic, I don't care if you care about God and Christ, like, I'm happy to talk to you about it, and I'm happy to have you on my side, because I feel like the West is under such a threat that we need to be accepting of different stripes of Christians. I mean, even like last time this show was on, there was like a Lutheran who was talking about all the stuff that Martin Luther said, and it sounded so crazy to me. But that's okay, that's fine, because I get him. He's American, he's German origin, he's Lutheran. I mean, he's Christian, that's fine. I don't think you're a racist at all, or you're saying stuff about anti-Greeks or whatever. Like, I get you. You're cerebral. You're a Canadian. You're polite. You're thinking about things in kind of a cerebral, intellectual way. And IQ appeals to you because it's a number and it's quantifiable, and you like that because you're Northern European. And that's fine. And and the Romanian, okay, he's got his own brand of Romanianness, and that's all good. We're all Westerners, we're all Christian, we're all on the same side. We all want to see the West survive. So I think, I mean, when you're talking about love, like, that's the kind of it sounds, when you say community, it sounds corny, but that's kind of the community that I think we need to develop going forward. Is like, we might have differences here and we might fight about them. And I don't mean punch to the right, because you can have disagreements and I think it's fine to punch to the right, you know, but when a stranger comes and somebody who condemns you all comes, then you all band together and you all, you know, form a defense against the outsider that's trying to attack all of you. And I hope that we can form an identity that's cohesive going forward, because I think that's the way forward and that's how we can do something cohesive about this. And I think one way to get cohesive is to talk about the West.
Well, I would prefer to talk about Christendom if we're like, you touched on that earlier, and I think that's kind of the way to go, that Christianity is the identity that can unite the West. It is the only thing that what's his name? Mr. Bones Wild Ride on Twitter had a long screed about the fact that the way to get rid of liberalism is through this weird mimetic thing that the alt-right is doing. But in the end, the final challenge that we're going to be facing is Islam. That liberalism is the kind of just the next step that we're going to have to be facing right now, and that the alt-right and their mimetic Keck stuff and all of that is useful for that. But in the end, we are going to have to band together as Christians to combat the what's going on with Islam.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's had to made our ancestors stronger. So this is our test.
Yeah.
I guess the baby boomers, they kind of got skipped as having any difficulty, but the rest of us have to really deal with it.
Oh, they had difficulty. It was just theirs was a moral difficulty, and they failed at it.
Yeah, well, I guess that's one way of looking at it.
Right? Like they had their opportunity. Not you, William, if you're still listening.
He's not a baby boomer. He's just an older Gen Xer.
But yeah,
but maybe we're luckier than the baby boomers in a way, though, because we have a real moral dilemma that it's really easy to take a side on. You know, I mean, we can be like, yeah, we want the West to survive. I mean, look at the baby boomers. What did they had? They had kind of, you know, luxury and decadence, and everything was great. And then they went on, you know, they went off like formlessly, kind of like dreamy, kind of just, you know, just corrupt. But we have a real moral dilemma that calls us, and that we can be called to, and that we can deal with. And in a way, that's kind of relieving psychologically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the problem with the baby boomers, is they didn't have a clear moral battle, that it was a bunch of small battles that didn't seem important at the time, so they didn't mind losing any one of them. Yeah.
You guys want to wrap up? I mean, we've been going for about 3.5 hours. At least.
Yeah, I think
we're
I said
the beginning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good talking to you guys. Oh, do you want to plug your audiobook, Bill, or is it ready yet?
It's not ready yet. I'll give it. I'm doing an audiobook version of my book. Everyone, or a bunch of people, are contributing chapters. Ian is doing a chapter. William is doing a chapter. It should be out mid-August. Hopefully it'll be out mid-August, depending on when everyone gets their chapters in. And it's going to be on Audible. Yeah, there's a ton of people that are going to be on it. Chris Cantwell's going to be reading a chapter. Pax Dickinson. Ramsey Paul is reading a chapter.
Oh, you know all the big guys, huh?
Getting there. Getting some of them. Yeah, that's it.
I guess I haven't really talked to Cantwell since. Is he still on Twitter?
No, got banned from Twitter. He's on Gab now.
Yeah, I mean, we followed each other on Twitter, and we retweet each other and stuff.
I was on his show before I came on this show, and you came up. We talked about you for a brief second.
Really?
So he mentioned, yeah, I used to follow that guy on Twitter. That's cool.
Oh wow, I gotta check that out. Yeah, I say if I find a reference to myself somewhere, I always download an MP3 of it if it's available. I don't know if he has that for if it's on YouTube, but
Not on YouTube. I'll send you a link to the thing when it's, or where it will be when it's up.
oh, cool. Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I can't. Well, I know that he's an atheist, but I've heard he sometimes he's recently been pondering religion. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I heard some people say, that on a recent thing he released, he was starting to ponder the idea of God or something. But I don't know. I haven't kept up with him much lately. But oh hey, William, we're just about to sign off.
Oh, you guys are just signing off?
Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I just got done doing what I was doing, and you guys were still on.
Okay.
So I thought I'd pop by.
Yeah, we just started. We were about to sign off, and then mentioned that he was talking to Chris Cantwell, and I was like, oh yeah, and we should talk about him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I heard
Loretta.
that you got all the big names on your thing, like William Scott.
Yeah. Oh, you were the
that's
second
one.
person I mentioned after Ian.
Ah,
I got top billing.
now I just got to read the right. I just got to read the right version. I'll try to do that soon. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, you can see you got a better microphone than I do. I had to record mine on an iPad because the only other option was this crappy microphone I got now.
Yeah, how much? I did a lot of editing. You were expecting? Oh, we're talking live business, so I'll talk to. Never mind. It's boring.
All right. Yeah, let's just wrap up here. Thanks everyone who came. I'm gonna read off all the names of all the people. I'll thank the people who are still here. Thank you, Bill Marchant. Thank you, Loretta the PROLE. Thank you, William Scott, and also thank you to Tom Knox, Luminette Saul, Gray Rebel, and Gregory Carlin, who all joined us. It was a good conversation, guys, and I'm glad we actually were able to stay on topic for about an hour and a half or 2 hours.
We got back to it at the end.
Yeah, we kind of tied it around in the end, but that's how these conversations go. We have the, you converse, you got on little meanders and stuff.
Love comes and goes.
Yeah. Oh, it's all about love. Guys, remember that. As Christians, we should definitely have a spirit of love. All right. Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you to all 12 of you who are, wow, 12 of you. We were down to 6 at one point. But thanks to everyone who came. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.